Joining us for the Dental Hygiene Board of California meeting. My name is Dr. Carmen Dones, and I'm the president of the board. Today is Saturday, November 16, 2024, and we are commencing the meeting at 9:00 a.m. I would ask all of us to please turn all cell phones to silent to decrease interruptions. Additionally, when board members or staff are not speaking, please remember to mute the microphone to eliminate any interference or side dialogue. For those participating remotely, please log on to the WebEx website location provided on the posted agenda for this meeting. Instructions to connect to the meeting are provided with the meeting materials. The preferred audio connection is via telephone conference and not the microphone and speakers on your computer. The phone number and access code are provided as part of your connection to the meeting. The meeting is also being webcast at the DCA link provided in the agenda. There is no interaction through webcasting and is only for viewing purposes. This is an official business meeting of the Dental Hygiene Board of California. Once the meeting commences, we'll proceed through the items as listed on the agenda. However, the president has discretion to take items out of order if warranted. We have worked in scheduled breaks at 10:30 for a 15-minute break, from 12 to 1 for lunch, and at 2 o'clock, another 15-minute break, and prior to the closed session, which is 10 minutes if needed for relief time. There is a closed session for this meeting as indicated on the agenda. The public will be excused for closed session and only board members, DCA legal, and staff will participate. The board welcomes public comments on any item on the agenda, and it is the board's intent to ask for public comments prior to the board acting on any agenda item. However, the board asks that the public comments pertain to the current agenda items only as it's being discussed during the meeting. Public comment is not intended to initiate discussion on the topic or topics not related to the agenda item, but an opportunity for the public to express their opinion for board consideration. Questions asked during public comment may or may not be answered at the board's discretion, especially if the question pertains to an item not on the agenda where the board may not discuss it. Enforcement inquiries will not be heard and should be directed to staff. The board does provide an opportunity for the public to comment on anything that is not on the meeting agenda, which is normally agenda item 2. I would now like to ask the DCA moderator to please explain how public comments will be taken during the WebEx meeting.
Thank you, Madam President. Before we get started, I would like to remind board members and staff who are not speaking to mute their microphone during today's meeting. If background noise is detected as a result of unmuted microphones, I will mute those microphones. There are members of the public in the audience and meeting minutes are being taken, so we ask members and staff to please identify themselves before speaking. For purposes of today's meeting, when the board president opens public comment, members of the public who would like to provide public comment at our DCA headquarters location in Sacramento can approach the table and microphone at the front of the room. For those joining us on WebEx, we will be utilizing the WebEx question and answer and hand raise features to facilitate public comment. When public comment is called, I will open the question and answer feature, which you will hear me refer to as the Q&A, and members of the public who wish to make a comment can click on the Q&A icon, type the word comment in the text box, and click on the send button. To utilize the hand raise feature, simply click on the hand icon next to your name to raise and lower your hand. Those who have called into the meeting can dial *3 to raise and lower their hand. After we have taken public comment from our Sacramento location, I will call on those individuals requesting to comment through WebEx. And with that, Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. I have a couple additional items that I'd like to announce. One is that board member Sherman King is absent and excused for today's meeting. In addition, item number 17 on the agenda will be moved up to number 10, which is the discussion and possible action for finalization of the DHPC 2024-20 to 2028 strategic plan. And now Executive Officer Anthony Lum also has an announcement to make regarding the meeting and logistics within the building for safety and the restroom locations.
Thank you, President Jones. This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. Just for logistics in the building, the restrooms are located, small restrooms right across the hall. And there's a larger set of restrooms. If you make a left, go across the atrium and down the hall directly across, there's a larger restroom over there. In case we need to evacuate the building, if you can think of this building as a cross, each hallway that you'll see as you're walking around the building has an exit at the far end. For us, if we need to exit and it's not blocked, just go out the hearing room doors and make a right straight out to the parking lot. The other thing that I have to announce is the strap plan has been moved because yesterday's committee meetings were actually initially posted incorrectly. If we were going to have a full board meeting yesterday, we had to notice the locations of our members, and we did not do that on the initial agenda, so some public members may have seen the first agenda that went up. Revised agendas are now posted on our website, so we were able to move the strategic plan to today's session with the full board addressing it. That's my announcements, and thank you.
Thank you. I would like to call the meeting to order and ask Board Secretary Nalini Lali Tribble Agarwal to please call the roll.
This is Nalini Lali Tribble Agarwal, and I'll call the roll. Carmen Dones.
Present.
Sonia Pat Hansen. Present. Sherman King. Absent. Michael Long.
Present.
Justin Matthews.
Present.
Sridevi Panala.
Present.
Nalini Lali Tribble Agarwal. Present. A quorum has been established.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 2, public comment for items not on the agenda. The board may not discuss or act on any matter raised during the public comment section that is not included on the agenda, except whether to decide to place the matter on the agenda of a future meeting. Are there any in-person public comments? Seeing none. Are there any WebEx public comments? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the Q&A feature for public comment?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions and will give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the president's report. Hello again, and I'm Dr. Carmen Dones, president of the Dental Hygiene Board, with a very brief report today. I participated in the Department of Consumer Affairs September leadership meeting where various leadership topics were discussed and best practices for running a collaborative meeting were shared. Executive Officer Lum and I have continued to meet at least twice a month or more for updates on board issues and to keep me abreast of items that need my attention. Lastly, with the holidays around the corner, I want to thank the board members and staff for their steadfast contributions to dental hygiene and for allowing me the opportunity to serve as president of this board. I'm honored to be in this position and to work with each of you. And with that, I'd like to wish you all a fantastic holiday season. That concludes my report. Are there any board member comments? Seeing none, are there any in-person public comments? Seeing none, are there any WebEx public comments? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the Q&A feature for public comment?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on the President's report, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, this is a moderator. I see no requests for comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 4, updates from the Department of Consumer Affairs. And I'd like to ask the DCA Member Relations Representative Yvonne Durantes to provide the report.
Good morning, everyone. Everybody hear me all right? Yeah, great. All right, well, happy to be here. Happy November, everyone. Every year, I just can't believe it's already mid-November when this meeting rolls around. So thank you for having me. And I have some updates for you, but am happy to repeat any of them. And I also want to note that a lot of the information that I will be sharing today will also be sent out in our BBR bi-monthly email that is sent out to the board presidents and vice presidents. But as always, I can also share any of this information with you directly as well if there's anything you need. So I'll go ahead and get started. And so to start off, I'd like to update you on our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee. And so last month, the committee met and they elected their new leadership. And so Reggie Varghese, the Medical Board of California's executive director, will be serving as our chair, and Marlon McManus, the Board of Behavioral Sciences assistant executive officer, will be serving as vice chair. And so under Reggie and Marlon, we hope to be able to accomplish a lot of DEI initiatives, and we look forward to their leadership. Moving on to unconscious bias training for board members. I am also excited to share that DCA is updating its current unveiling unconscious bias training to specifically focus on board members due to your critical role and how unconscious bias can affect your decision-making authority. The training will be self-paced and available on DCA's online learning management system, which we refer to as LMS. And we anticipate launching this new training in early 2025. And so board members will be required to take that annually. And as a reminder, DCA does also offer over 20 online DEI courses online as well on LMS, and they are also self-paced. And although those are not mandatory, we do highly encourage for you to take them. And if there are any issues with LMS, if you forgot your login or your password, I'm happy to assist with any of that. If you don't remember what training you've completed or what training is outstanding for you, especially with December 31st coming up, during any of the breaks, I'm happy to pull up the transcript and let you know if there's any trainings that you're missing. All right, moving on to our military licensing resource webinar. To support and maximize outreach to our military community, DCA is hosting a second live webinar on November 21st to share information about military licensing resources. And during the webinar, attendees will learn about licensing resources available to members of the military and their spouses or domestic partners. The webinar will also feature a demonstration of DCA's Federal Professional License Portal and state registration process, which was launched last fall, as well as a Q&A session, and additional webinar details are available online at dca.ca.gov/military. New business and travel expense reimbursement program. And so the state's Department of Human Resources, which is also known as CalHR, recently updated their travel policy to align with federal policies outlined in the U.S. General Services Administration. Effective October 1st, DCA is now using federal standard meals and incidental expense rates for in-state and out-of-state travel. And DCA will also use the federal standard and non-standard reimbursement lodging rates. Information on these changes was shared with board leaders at the end of September. If you did not receive it, I'm happy to forward it again. And board members are encouraged to become familiar with these new travel expense reimbursement rates. And so if you do have any questions, though, I'm happy to answer. And we are officially in the season of giving. And so DCA is happy to be a part of a couple charitable campaigns that are happening this month. One of them did just happen on November 13th, and that was the annual turkey drive. And so that was held at various DC headquarter buildings. And so we will be sharing the final counts and the amounts that we were able to collect at the December leadership meeting. So, and that was to assist Joey's Food Locker, which is located in Natomas. And every year through the Our Promise campaign, California State Employees Charitable Campaign, state employees, including board members, also have the opportunity to support a nonprofit of your choice or that you are passionate about through either payroll giving or through one-time donations. And these contributions obviously have a very positive impact in our communities. And so this year's campaign is led by Monica Vargas, which is our Deputy Director of Communications, and Karen Navarro, our Assistant Deputy Director of Communications. And so this campaign will be officially launching on Monday, November 18th, and it'll be running through December 31st. And so if you did sign up for it in the last 2 or 3 years, it should roll over, it should carry over. But there is a way for you to verify as well if you have been making donations to verify, or if you want to change a nonprofit that you are donating to, it's very easy to do as well, and I can assist with that as well. So that is all the updates I have for you. This moment, I'm happy to take any questions.
I have a question. The documents that you referred to with regards to the new policy for the federal regulations, is that posted somewhere on the DCA website?
I'll have to check. I think it might be in the internet, but I'm happy to share that or forward that email again to you because it did have the guide, the travel guide attached.
Wonderful. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I can share that with you.
Are there any other board member discussion items? Seeing none, are there any in-person public comments? Seeing none, are there any WebEx public comments? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the Q&A feature for public comment?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 4, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you.
Great. Well, happy holidays, everyone. Thank you.
And thank you for your report. We will now move on to agenda item 5, update from the Dental Board of California. And I'd like to ask DBC President, Dr. Felsenfeld. He will be joining us via WebEx for his report.
Good morning, everyone. This is Alan Felsenfeld, and I'm the president of the Dental Board of California. Can you all hear me?
Clearly, if you can turn up the volume or.
Can you hear me at all? I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. I've had problems in the past. Anyway, I would like to bring you greetings from the Dental Board of California and highlight some of the activities that we've recently had. The Dental Board of California and its Dental Assisting Council had a busy meeting last week on November 7th and 8th to receive regular board and council updates, as well as to hear several presentations and discuss new items. Some of the highlights include, for example, the board has announced that it's filled 80 of its 84 authorized staff positions, and that's very good. The board itself, however, has lost 2 members, terming out as of January 1st, 2025, and that would be Ms. McKenzie, a public member, and Ms. Pacheco, our dental hygiene member. The board approved to distribute and post an updated table of permitted dental auxiliary duties delegable by the supervising dentist as required by California Code of Regulations, CCR Title 16, Section 1068. While updating this table and implementing the changes required of Senate Bill 1453, that was our sunset bill, the board staff have become aware of sections of the law that need to be clarified still. The board encouraged stakeholders to send feedback back to the board so that it can be addressed at future board and council meetings through the legislative process. The board's infection control advisory working group, consisting of Joanne Pacheco, our then vice president of the board, Kara Miyazaki, who is the chair of our council, and our dental hygiene board subject matter expert, Michael Long, have reviewed the regulations for clarity of language, necessity for amendments, and consistency with other governing agencies, such as Cal OSHA, Cal EPA, and the Centers for Disease Control. The goal has been established, our goal, is to establish consensus and appropriate consistency on the proposed regulatory amendments to the minimum standards for infection control and subsequent implementation of those standards. The proposed language was brought to your Legislation and Regulatory Committee yesterday and now to your board today. If approved by your board, the proposed language will then be presented at our February 6th and 7th, 2025 Dental Council and board meetings and move along. The board heard presentations on the Licensed Physicians and Dentists from Mexico pilot program, which is in statute at BPC section 653 by Mr. Torres. We also heard about the accreditation process for dental education programs for foreign dental schools from the Commission on Dental Accreditation of the American Dental Association. And we heard a presentation on creating a pipeline of dental practitioners through approval of foreign dental schools from the Dolores Huerta Foundation. And then finally, we had our elections for board and council positions, and I can announce that our council chair will be Ms. Epps Robbins, and the vice chair will be Jerry Fowler. Our board president this year will be Dr. Stephen Chan, who is a pediatric dentist from Northern California. I am honored to serve as the vice president. I'm an oral surgeon from down in Southern California. And Dr. Lilia Loren will be a general dentist from Southern California, will be our secretary. That concludes my report. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you. Are there any board comments? Seeing none, are there any in-person public comments? Seeing none, are there any WebEx public comments? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the feature for public comment?
Thank you, Madam President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on Agenda Item 5, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions and will give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. We will now move on to Agenda Item 6, discussion and possible action to approve the July 19, 2024 full board meeting minutes. Are there any board member revisions or amendments to the July 19, 2024 full board meeting minutes? Yes. It's okay.
On page 23 of the board meeting materials regarding the July 19th, 2024 meeting minutes, in the first paragraph at the very end, it states, established by resolution, the fee for an additional physical facility permit at $100, as well as the fee for an additional physical biennial permit renewal at $160. The numbers are incorrect. It should read the additional, the additional physical facility permit at $160, as well as the fee for an additional physical facility biennial permit renewal at $250. So I apologize that error is there.
Thank you. Are there any additional board member comments? Seeing none, are there any public comments? In-person public comment? Seeing none, are there any public comments? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the Q&A feature for public comment?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type comment in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or else raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Please identify yourself and then make a motion.
This is Board Member Matthews. I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Will Board Secretary Nalini Lally Tribble Agarwal please call the roll and record votes for this agenda item?
This is Nalini Lally Tribble Agarwal, and I will now call the roll. Carmen Dones,
Aye.
Sonia Pat Hansen,
Aye.
Sherman King absent, Michael Long,
Aye.
Justin Matthews,
Aye.
Sridevi Panala,
Abstain. I was out for that meeting.
Nalini Lally Tribble Agarwal, aye.
The motion passes.
The motion is passed.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 7, discussion and possible action to approve the July 2024 full board meeting minutes. Are there any board member revisions or amendments to the July 2024 full board meeting minutes? Did I just do that? I am. Seeing no board member discussion items, are there any in-person public comments? Seeing none, are there any WebEx public comments? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the Q&A feature for public comment?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 7, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Long. I move to approve the July 2024 full board meeting minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
This is Board Member Matthews. I second.
Thank you. Will the board secretary, Nalini Lally Tribble Agarwal, please call the roll and record votes for this agenda item?
This is Nalini Lally Tribble Agarwal, and I will now call the roll. Carmen Dones,
Aye.
Sonia Pat Hansen,
Aye.
Sherman King absent, Michael Long,
Aye.
Justin Matthews,
Aye.
Sridevi Panal,
Abstain.
Nalini Lally Tribble Agarwal, aye. The motion has passed.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 8, election of new 2025 board officers. I would like to ask Executive Officer Anthony Lem to present this agenda item.
Thank you, President Jones. It's Anthony Lum, Executive Officer, and we'll commence now with election of officers, which is what we do every November. Just one comment that I received from my board member, just to share. Member Sherman King expressed that he's fine with the current slate of officers, but that's just for discussion. It's not a nomination or anything. So to begin the nomination process, does anybody want to nominate another member for president?
This is Michael Long. I'm on. I nominate Carmen Dones for president.
Are there any other nominations?
This is Shri Punala. I nominate Dr. Dons for president.
Sonia Pat Hansen, nominate Carmen Jones for president.
This is Nalini Lolly Tribble. I vote for Carmen Jones as president.
Okay. President Dones, do you accept the nomination for the office of president for 2025?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Are there any nominations for vice president?
This is Nalini Tribble. I nominate Pat Hansen to be vice president.
Any other nominations for vice president? Okay, member Pat Hansen, do you accept the nomination for vice president?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, moving on. Are there nominations for secretary?
This is Sonia Hansen. I nominate Nanelli Lolly Tribal Arwal.
This is Shri Punala. I nominate Nalini Tribal Agarwal for secretary.
Okay, any other nominations? Looks like we could have just voted on maintaining slate of officers. Okay. Lolly Triple Aguilar, do you accept the nomination for secretary?
I do.
Okay, I'll now call the roll. To accept the slate of officers, we have President Carmen Dones, Vice President Sonia Hansen, and Secretary Nalini Lolly Triple Aguilar. Carmen Dones? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. We need to have public comment. Any in-person public comments on the nominations of our slate of officers for nominations? Seeing none, do we have any WebEx comments? WebEx moderator, please open the portal to accept public comment.
Thank you, Executive Officer Lum. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Executive Officer Lum, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. So now I'll call the roll. Carmen Dones?
Aye.
Sonia Pat Hansen?
Aye.
Chairman King is absent. Michael Long? Justin Matthews? Sridevi Ponala?
Aye.
And Nalini Lolly Tribble Aguilar.
Aye.
Motion passes. We have the current slate of officers continuing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now to agenda item 9, discussion and possible action on the 2025 and 2026 scheduled board meeting dates.
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. In the meeting materials on page 55 is the proposed meeting dates for 2025 and 2026. It maintains a schedule for the board to schedule 3 board meetings per year. And our normal schedule has them sometime in March, July, and November. So those are the proposed dates. If you want to have any questions or discussion on those dates and whether they will work for the board to conduct them over the next 2 years.
Do we need to make a motion to have a discussion?
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Can I make a motion?
Yes, can we have a motion to accept the dates after review?
I move to approve the following 2025 and 2026 full board meeting dates as listed.
I second. Thank you. Is there any public comments?
Board comment?
Oh, board comments. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm not actually available on March 28th, 2025 and 2029. I have a family engagement, and I would ask that the board consider moving that date 1 week prior to March 21st and 22nd, if that's possible.
Thank you. Are there any other board member comments? Are there any public comments?
Joanne Galliano, and just speaking on behalf of myself at this point, for the November meeting, that's the weekend before Thanksgiving, and I don't know if any of you have travel issues with trying to travel. Is there any reason why we couldn't move that back to, a week, have it a week earlier as well? So it's not butting up against Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving week. And it doesn't conflict with the Veterans Day holiday, so I checked that too.
The Anthony Lum, Executive Officer, the dates are flexible and it's up to the board's prerogative to move them accordingly.
So that would be November. 14, 15, 16.
Okay. Are there any WebEx public comment? Moderator, would you please initiate the WebEx comments?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 9, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Okay, I'd like to propose that we move the 2025 March date to the weekend prior to the one listed, so March 21 and 22, and the November meeting to November 15th and 16th. 14th and 15th, sorry.
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. The dates are not in stone, so, they are flexible. These are just tentative proposal dates. Okay, thank you.
So I'd now like to ask the board secretary, Nalini Lally Tribble Agarwal, to please call the roll and record votes for this agenda item as amended.
This is Nalini Lally Tribble Agarwal. And I will now call the roll. Carmen Jones.
Aye.
Sonia Pat Hansen.
Aye.
Sherman King, absent. Michael Long.
Aye.
Justin Matthews. Sridevi Panala.
Aye.
Nalini Lally Tribble Agarwal. Aye. This motion has passed.
Thank you. No, we won't. Okay, again, we're taking the agenda items out of order, and now we'll be presenting the agenda item 17, discussion and possible actions for the finalization of the Dental Hygiene Board of California 2024 to 2028 strategic plan. I would ask Executive Officer Anthony Lem to please present this item.
For those, this is Anthony Lem, Executive Officer. For those that are following along, we're addressing this issue today because it could not be addressed yesterday at yesterday's meeting. The materials are actually in the Education Committee meetings from yesterday. We didn't have enough time to ship those over to today's date on the website. So if you're following along and you would like to read over our latest strategic plan, that's where the materials are located. Over the past, year and a half, we work closely with the Department of Consumer Affairs to arrange our new strategic plan, and it's set up for 2024 through 2028, so those 5 years. We originally finished the draft at our March meeting of this year to finalize it at our July meeting. However, we could not establish a quorum at the July meeting, and so it was tabled until today. So staff is proposing our new strategic plan for the board to approve and ratify at today's meeting. Thank you.
Is there a motion? Please identify yourself and make the motion. This is Carmen Jones. I move for the board to approve the final draft version of the board's 2024 to 2028 strategic plan for immediate implementation. Is there a second?
This is Board Member Matthews. I second.
Thank you. Is there any board member discussion? Seeing none, are there any in-person public comments? Seeing none, are there any WebEx public comments? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the Q&A feature for public comment?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Will Board Secretary Nalini Lally Tribble Agarwal please call the roll and record votes for this agenda item?
This is Nalini Lally Tribble Agarwal, and I will now call the roll. Carmen Jones.
Aye.
Sonia Pat Hansen.
Aye.
Sherman King, absent. Michael Long.
Aye.
Justin Matthews. Sridevi Panala.
Aye.
Nalini Lally Tribble Agarwal. Aye. This motion has passed.
Thank you.
Okay. We will now go to, back to agenda item 10, the executive officer's report. I would like to ask the board executive officer Anthony Lum to present this information-only agenda item.
Thank you, President Jones. Good morning, everybody. I'm Anthony Lum, the Executive Officer of the Dental Hygiene Board, to present my report. First area is about personnel, and we currently have 2 vacant positions and recently received approval to resume hiring procedures to fill them. They were pending for any hiring action from the Department of Finance's budget reduction drill due to the state's fiscal situation. The official impact of the budget and vacant position reduction drill on our program is still pending and will be reported after I receive the results. I did do a follow-up right before yesterday's meeting, and like I said, they're still pending. So hopefully we'll get that information soon. Since our last meeting, I filled our assistant executive officer position and happy to announce that Albert Law has been promoted from the enforcement manager position to the assistant executive officer position to assist me in running the board. He's assumed the position at the beginning of August and has done an outstanding job. So thank you, Albert. In regards to board members, I'm happy to announce that we have a new public board member who was appointed by the House Speaker. Her name is Julie Elginer, and she'll be present at the next board meeting as it was too short of notice and timeline to participate in this meeting. She was actually just appointed on Halloween, so that'll be an easy date for her to remember. In regards to our budget, the latest budget expenditure projection, revenue, and fund condition reports are in today's meeting materials on pages 57 to 63 for your review. These reports show totals from fiscal month 3, which is expenses captured through September 2024. The first report is the expenditure report, and it's on pages 57 through 59. We're almost halfway through the fiscal year, and we continue to be selective and efficient with our spending. On page 60 is our projection report for anticipated expenses through the year. I work closely with the Department of Consumer Affairs budget office to project any unexpected expenses or contracts or things like that that could impact our budget. So we're in good communication and close communication, so that way we know where our funds are being spent. On our revenue report, which is on page 61 and 62, it shows the amount of revenue the board has received through fiscal month 3. If projected out through the end of the year, we should be on track to receive the anticipated amount of revenue by that time. On page 63 is our fund condition report, which is also deemed, I like to unofficially call it our savings account, by fiscal year, and shows the amount of funds available if we obtain authorization to use it. The fund continues to be healthy and in the black moving forward. And it better be, because I'm responsible for it. So. The next item is in the administration realm, and I'd like to report that I participated in the dental board's August and November 2024 board meetings, and as reported to them, I appreciate the ongoing cooperation and collaboration we've had with their program. Communication is awesome, and my staff and their staff frequently communicate because obviously we have overlapping professions, and we're there for each other for enforcement, or I should say informational purposes. Their executive officer, Dr. Tracy Montez, thank you, Tracy, for everything, announced that she'll be retiring soon. So I want to thank her for welcoming me to their meetings and her efforts to work together with us. I participated in the Department of Consumer Affairs September 2024 leadership and DCA directors quarterly meetings where current issues affecting programs were discussed. In September, I conducted 2 informal conferences after board action on Pasadena City College and Taft College after they were found to be deficient of the law and code of standards. The results were, after a presentation that was provided by Pasadena City College for additional compliance information. Their presentation included photos and information that was given over our informal conference call. And I decided to withdraw the citation against Pasadena City College, but affirm the 2-year probation ordered by the board to monitor their building process. The second informal conference was with Taft College, and I affirmed the citation and fine ordered by the board with no modification. They have since paid the fines and continue with their probation orders. I also provided a board update presentation to the California Dental Hygiene Educators Association at their annual meeting in October to inform them of the board's educational program overview and program statistics. That concludes my report, and are there any questions?
Are there any board member comments?
I do have a question. This is Michael Long. It's regarding, I guess, the budget and the choice to have our 2-day meeting on WebEx and then live. I'm not going to lie, it was a struggle for me to do WebEx meeting yesterday with all the information we had.
Okay.
And I looked over the budget from our July meeting. It was the 2023-2024 fiscal month 11. And I'm just looking at maybe in-state travel, facilities, and IT as the fiscal codes lines that we would use. And all of those seem to be under budget projected for last year. And I'm just not sure why we chose to have online meeting and not in person.
It was twofold, in my opinion. The first was we did receive a request from the department to conserve on expenditures because of the state's fiscal situation. Although we are granted our budgets each year with a certain dollar amount, it still can be requested that we continue to conserve funds. I also wanted to see the results, and I'm glad for your feedback, of how splitting the meeting, shall we call it, between online one day and in live person the next day, how that would result. And if any other board members have any comments, I'd be glad to accept them after the meeting. But I prefer to have in-person meetings myself.
Yeah.
And so if it is cumbersome to have the online meeting moving forward, then we can definitely arrange to have them in person.
Well, even the committee meeting, if we did committee meeting in person, we can talk about this more later, and then this board meeting as a WebEx. Things like your presentation later on the dental hygiene education programs, Department of Consumer Affairs, and then the dental board presentation. These are all things that I don't think we need to be live for. So maybe even just flipping that and doing the committee meeting. There was a lot of information on that committee meeting yesterday, especially for education. So I prefer them both live if moving forward, if we can arrange that.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for the input.
Yeah, thank you.
And there was a lot of information for these meetings. Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any additional board comments? Seeing none. Are there any in-person public comments?
Joanne Galliano, I would just like to support Board Member Long's request to have the meetings that have committee hearings in person as opposed to online. It was difficult not being able to assess what was going on. Dynamics, I think, are very important in any meeting, and not having that face-to-face and not having the dynamics that are going on. I think it just made it very difficult with some of those things that we're trying to deal with to try to get the actual tenor of what the board was doing and where they were going when we were virtual, because we as the audience could not see. Justin, we could see you. The only person we couldn't see the rest of the board members. So I would again support Board Member Long's request as a public member, as a public person of the public. It just seemed very difficult to try to manipulate and get through all that information when it was on WebEx.
Thank you.
Good morning, Dr. Jones and Mr. Longman, board members. My name is Edward Cramp, and I'm a member of the public. As you know, I've appeared before you in a number of contexts over the years. Some years ago, we had a meeting, I think, in San Francisco, where in a public comment session, I applauded the board for having one of the earliest in-person meetings following the pandemic and the lockdowns. I think that it is really important to have in-person meetings. I would echo Mr. Long's sentiment as well as the prior speaker. Part of the issue, just to give you some feedback from the public, when we have clients or when myself, my colleague are coming to meet here at the board, yesterday we were in San Diego where we're located, but we had to have our clients come in because of where they were coming from yesterday. So from an expense and a time perspective, it's the same to us. If we're here on Friday and here on Saturday, it's actually better and more efficient for us to be here in front of you. I think also from a communications perspective, it's much easier to communicate in person. A lot of the communications are not just verbal, they're also visual. I mean, there are, expressions and hand motions and looking at each other. And, those things are all, I think, important for human communication. So I would really encourage you to have as many in-person meetings as possible. I think it's really helpful. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Seeing no other in-person public comments, are there any WebEx public comments? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the Q&A feature for public comment?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. We'll now go on to the presentation by Executive Officer Anthony Lam.
Thank you, President Jones. So may I ask Bryce, can you raise the screen, please? Can everybody see the TV monitor okay? Can the audience see the monitor okay? Just a little bit, Bryce. Just a little bit. Can everybody see the screen okay? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Bryce. The reason I wanted to bring this presentation to the board is because outside of the meetings and everything, I've receiving a lot of inquiries about dental hygiene educational programs, about certain situations that maybe board members or outside entities have heard. Because there's a lot of rumors that go around out there. And so I just wanted to provide some information to the board about what our processes are during our site visits. So can I get the next slide, please? So what this is again, an overview of the steps that we take for educational programs site reviews. Next slide. So this is what we came over the years as our plan. So what we try to do is schedule site visits according to each dental hygiene educational program's CODA visits, the Commission on Dental Accreditation. And they normally conduct their visits every 7 years. And to minimize the work and efforts that faculty and staff need to go through for the programs, we coincide that with the CODA visits because they prepare a lot of materials for the CODA visit, and then we try to not have them duplicate that work, but we want to go in right after so that we can review the same information. Currently, we've completed reviews of all 26 dental hygiene educational programs and have a baseline of compliance or are aware of current deficiencies to be corrected for each program. That was my original plan when we started this back in 2017, 16-ish. And Dr. Petty and we collaborated on this, and I told her it's going to take us at least 5 years Well, barring the pandemic, it only took us 6 to complete all of them. So I think we're in a good place. But the goal of that was to, again, have a baseline to compare. So that way, when we ever return back to the school, we have something to compare what they've done previously. Next slide, please. So this is a rundown of what the program should expect as far as the process for our site visits. The process is that board staff will contact the program director to arrange the site visit date and inform the PD of what to prepare for the review. The site visit can be announced or unannounced pursuant to Business and Professions Code Section 1941, subsection B, depending on the issue. Obviously, for our scheduled site visits, those are announced beforehand. The reasons for the site visits are, again, the recent CODA site visit that they've conducted, so that way we can just follow on their coattails to review the information and the program. Also, we go to do site visits based on complaints that we received, and those could be from students, those could be from faculty, the administration, or the program director themselves have submitted complaints to us. Another one is a change in program schedule, change in program director, changes in facilities, infection control issues, or other program impacting issues that we should be made aware of. Staff will conduct a site visit to review all aspects of the program, including facilities, clinic, staff, and interviews with students, faculty, and administration if necessary. Next slide, please. So I used to get this question a lot, but now that we've been out there, it's not so frequent, but it's what to expect on site visits. And once concluded, staff will send a letter of compliance of deficiencies that need action with a deadline for compliance. If a dental hygiene educational program is in compliance, no further action needs to be addressed and all is good. If the dental hygiene educational program is found to have deficiencies, the board's deficiency letter will identify the deficiencies with the board's laws and or CODA standards explained, and the program is required to correct or remedy the issues for compliance. We give them a certain amount of time to do so, and it's very reasonable for them to come into compliance. Before further board action is taken, we do consider how long of a period that we have provided for compliance. And many programs, when they look at our deadlines, they may find it too short. So we're very open to asking for extensions, reasonable extensions, however. I mean, if somebody puts out correcting an infection control issue and we need 2 years to reverse that, that's unacceptable. So again, reasonable extensions are considered. Next slide, please. So this is the juicy part, the penalties for noncompliance. Before 2019, actually 2018, the only avenue that this board had as far as a penalty for a dental hygiene educational program that was non-compliant was to actually remove their approval. By removing the approval, it doesn't stop the school from teaching dental hygiene. However, what that does is make their students ineligible for the license, because by law, the graduating student must graduate from a board-approved program. So what we did in 2019, effective in 2019, was we obtained statutory authority pursuant to Business and Professions Code Section 1941.5, subsection C and D for intermediary actions. So full withdrawal of a board approval is not used immediately. If a program continues to be non-compliant of the board's laws and CODA standards, after the opportunity to comply, the board's action options are to issue a citation and fine with orders of abatement, place the program on probation with terms and conditions, and then we will also conduct a new or follow-up announced and unannounced site visits to ensure programs maintain compliance or result from complaints received. The board's removal of a program's approval is always the last option. And again, we consider and take into account the egregiousness of the offenses that are alleged. By placing a program on probation, it allows the schools time to work toward compliance of the laws and code of standards without having to fully withdraw board approval. Next slide, please. Programs who have action taken against them do have an appeals process, and that's built into the law. If the board acts on a program, whether it's citation and fine, probation, or withdrawal of approval due to deficiencies of the law or code of standards, the program has the right to an informal conference with the board's executive officer to provide additional information for compliance, as I reported out in my verbal report. After the informal conference, the executive officer may affirm, modify, or dismiss the board's actions against the program. If the program is not satisfied with the executive officer's decision, they have the right to request a formal hearing before an administrative law judge pursuant to the government code. If the ALJ modifies the ruling, it will be presented to the board for consideration. Next slide, please. Are there any questions on this process? No. Okay. Are there any public comments on this process? Seeing none. DCA moderator, would you open the portal to have WebEx comments, please?
Thank you, Executive Officer Lum. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment at this time. Executive Officer Lum, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. That concludes that part of my presentation. The next few slides pertain to the next agenda item, so we'll just keep the slideshow up, and I turn it back over to the president.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. We will now move on to agenda item 11, discussion and possible action to amend California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Sections 1104.2, 1104.3, 1105.4, 1107, 1108, and 1109 regarding the dental hygiene educational programs appeal process. I would like to ask the board's executive officer, Anthony Lum, to present this agenda item.
Thank you, President Dones. This agenda item is put forth because, and this is my opinion, but the way the appeals process seems backwards to me. In going through the informal conferences and everything with the educational programs, the informal conference occurs after board action. And it doesn't parallel with how our enforcement actions are taken against licensees. And I wasn't the creator of the regulations that provided the appeals process, but what this proposal on this agenda item is a request to possibly amend these regulatory sections that contain this appeals process to kind of reverse it. I do have some slides to show up here, continuing on with the appeals process. And if you look on the slide, the left side shows the current appeals process, where in acting on a dental hygiene educational program, so staff does their action, the site visit and everything, and the program demonstrates noncompliance. Then the second issue is if they continue to show noncompliance, then the case is brought to the board for action if it's not corrected. Then the board determines action against the program. If the action that occurs that the board took is not accepted by the educational program, then they can request an informal conference with me. And then I can act and revise what the board has decided, as I did with Pasadena City College, and move on from there. Or If they are not, if the educational program is not agreeable to what my decision is, they can request a formal hearing. What I propose to do is on the right-hand side for these, proposed for these regulations is on the right-hand side, and this does parallel what we do with our current enforcement. Again, staff completes its actions of the site visits, and the educational program demonstrates continued non-compliance. So what would happen there is that now the executive officer would determine what the potential penalty would be for a dental hygiene educational program. And then from that point, we would work with the program to inform them of what the EO's decision is. And if they are not happy with that decision, then they can request an informal conference with the board to make a determination on the executive officer's actions. In other words, they can appeal to the board of what my actions would be. So the board can basically take over my role and affirm, modify, or dismiss what the EO's decision is. And again, if the educational program is not happy with the result of the appeal, they can always request a formal hearing with the administrative law judge. Next slide, please. So this is just, again, a listing of the proposed regulatory sections that would be affected that we would need to amend in the future. And there's no timeline on this, believe me. I know Adina appreciates that. So we're not slamming her with 6 new regulations or anything like that. Next slide, please. So these are the projected outcomes that I see for it, is that amendments to the educational regulations will align the oversight of these programs with how the board investigates enforcement cases against licensees. The second aspect is it rearranges authority to the EO first to implement enforceable actions against the program, but then provides the full board authority to affirm, modify, or dismiss the EO's actions if appealed. Next slide, please. Any questions on this process and this proposal? Oh, I'm sorry. We need a motion first, don't we? Sorry. Because it's an act. It's an action. Should I ask for a board motion? Is there a board motion to accept this proposal?
Mrs. Long, I move for the full board to review the current DHEP appeals process regulatory language to determine if a change is warranted. If the full board determines this change is warranted, I move to authorize executive officer to draft amended regulatory language in California Code of Regulations, CCR Title 16, sections 1104.2, 1104.3, 1105.4, 1107, 1108, 1109, and 1109 to address the DHEP appeals process for intermediary actions or withdrawal of the board's approval and return to the board for review and possible action.
It's Carmen Dones. I second.
Is there any board member discussion?
Yeah, this is board member Matthews. So maybe if the executive officer could give a little bit of a context with regard to how other boards, is this similar to how other boards handle these procedures? Yeah, I'm not familiar with other boards. I'm just wondering if that's something that is, if this change, if what we're proposing is similar to what is currently done in other boards.
Part of this executive officer, Anthony Lum, part of the problem is, and through the DCA programs, I'm not sure how many of them oversee their educational programs. There are many programs that just accept the accreditation agencies' accreditation for their schools, but we go a step further and review them a lot closer with our own approval. So as far as paralleling that with other programs, I'm not sure on that. But what I do know is that the process that has been proposed parallels with how many, if not all other boards address their enforcement actions against their licensees.
Oh, sorry. And then just one more question. So looking at this, looking at the slides really quick. At slide page 72. So for an action to come to the board under the proposed process, an appeal would have to be submitted from the education program of the EO's decision.
That is correct.
Okay, so
And that's the current process as well.
okay. All right. Thank you.
This is Carmen Dones. I'm just wondering, what was the impetus to change this? Did you find that there was discrepancies in the way it was, the way it currently is?
The discrepancies that I have and concerns that I have is that my position is now changing the opinions and determinations of potentially 9 people. And I just think that that's a bit backwards, especially with the enforcement process that we already have. It does give this position a lot of authority, to be honest, but I just think that opinions from 9 individuals would supersede what one person could determine a lot better and have a little bit more variety as far as that opinion is concerned.
Thank you. Is there any additional board member comments?
I do want to comment. This is Michael Long. On that same slide, page 72, the EO determines potential action, penalty and action. And just a reminder, when in educational committee meeting yesterday, we discussed creating a task force to create a penalty rubric. And I'm assuming that the rubric would be followed for you to take these actions. So
that is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, this, by the time, if we modified these regulations, honestly, by the time they would be modified, our task force will be well done with creating that rubric. And that's what we would follow as far as potential penalties are concerned.
This is Sonia Hansen. So Anthony, a couple questions, and this is also legal looks into all of this as well, right?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Legal looks into all of it prior any decision, final comments to what
That's correct.
penalties will be done. So
That's
everything is done to the standards of.
Yeah, because we always vet our opinions through legal because we want to make sure that they comply with what our laws and our authority is.
Thank you.
This is Member Matthews with another question. So this is not directed at you, EO Lum, but an EO in general. As a board, what is our option with regard to having an educational program be, I guess, have a potential penalty or action taken against them from an EO? And then as a board, if we don't agree with that action, how do we get involved? Because I guess what I'm currently thinking is we would only get involved if the educational program appeals. Is that true? Or would we have a way to say the EO did this, but we don't agree?
Yes, this process, if the school chooses to appeal the action of the executive officer, that is what this provides the opportunity for the board to participate in. Because if the school feels that they were unjustly penalized, then they can appeal to the board, and then the board can take it under consideration as far as the information and additional compliance information that they may receive in regards to that appeal, and then potentially change the determination of enforcement action against that school.
But that opportunity given to the board would only be given if the educational program appealed.
Correct.
Okay.
This is Tony Hansen. Anthony, do you think that this will expedite the process by shortening the time limit that appeals can be done since it goes through to you? Or would it be about the same time appeals taken?
As far as a time consideration is concerned, the only shortcut that it takes is that if a educational program is accepting the penalty that is given by the EO, then there wouldn't be an appeals process.
Correct.
In this process, once they appeal, then it would either have to be a special meeting or one of our scheduled meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any additional board member comments? Okay, seeing none, are there any in-person public comments?
Joanne Galliano, educational consultant for the board, and also someone who's been involved with the legislation that created the board. I feel that the board needs to make that initial decision as to what the penalty is going to be. I understand. I think that should they appeal the process, I would like it to come back to the board and not put that onus on the EO to have to make that next decision and not have it, and have it just be blanket and the board not supporting it. But I think that step still should be there to have the board review first, set a penalty, allow for the appeal would happen, the EO would make a decision, and then that would come back to the board. And again, it wouldn't have to be a formal meeting. It could probably be something that could be done. Could we set up, so it could be something that could be done without having a formal meeting of the board. It could be something that was done through consensus. But I really do feel that first look, that first decision, and again, I think more, in my opinion, I think it's more to protect the EO position in the sense that it's not a one-person decision, it's a decision of a group of people. I would just kind of worry about, again, the position that would put the EO in over time as being a kind of like a little educational czar, I'm going to do this, that, or whatever. I want you to stay alive. No, no, it's teasing. Basically, so I do think that you guys should consider keeping that initial decision being made by the board. And then again, go through to protect the EO's position. If there's an appeal made and there's going to be a change, to just make sure that the board approves that change.
Thank you. This is Carmen Dones. It's my understanding that the citation will be issued and that's the board's decision, right? And
Correct.
then if there's an appeal, then that goes back to the EO for decision making.
That's correct.
Okay.
And this is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. That language parallels what is in law right now. What we based it on as far as the current language that we're trying to revise is paralleling our language for appeals to withdraw the program. So that section alone has it where the appeal comes back to the EO. And so subsequent regulations pertaining to dental hygiene educational programs paralleled that language to where the appeal process still comes back to the EO. And this proposal is basically to put a 180 on that. So that way the appeal comes back to the board rather than having it a single person making that judgment. But again, that judgment would be based upon the rubric that is created by our task force.
Are there any additional public in-person comments?
Good morning again, Dr. Dones. I apologize. I should have introduced myself more fully earlier. My name is Edward Cramp. I'm a partner at the Duane Morris Law Firm, where I practice in the law of higher education. That's all I do is represent institutions of higher learning. I'm also a co-lead of our higher education practice group at the firm, and I am an adjunct faculty member at the Drexel University College of Law and School of Education, where I teach on things like accreditation and state licensure and those things. It's a fascinating course, I promise you. I think, you know, and just listening to Mr. Lum's presentation, I'm really hard pressed to think of a way to improve upon it. Honestly, I've been through this process both with Mr. Lum and his predecessor for many years now. And I think in our more ponderous moments, it has struck us as a little bit odd the way that it is kind of upside down with the board first taking action and then the executive officer then reviewing that. The only suggestion that I might offer to you to just think about is to think about whether between the time of the board action and the administrative law judge process, whether you want to build in a little bit of an off-ramp for kind of a mediated resolution. The reason I offer that up is that the ALJ process is fairly cumbersome, and I think that the lawyers from the Department of Consumer Affairs can probably vouch for this. It is a laborious process. It is a real trial in front of a real judge. It is expensive for both the institutions and for the state to do. And so the dynamics of that, if you think about it, is you have staff doing a visit, making findings, then you have a meeting with the executive officer where the initial determination recommendation is made. And then it's only if the institution is unhappy with that it's going to come to this board. And then if the board reaffirms that, now the institution has been
15
told,
seconds.
this is what's going to happen. It just may give an opportunity to kind of resolve it before it goes to that final, final resolution. The precedent for this would be with the Bureau for Private Post-Secondary Education, which has a similar process. It's a bureau, not a board, but they do encourage that mediated settlement before the ALJ process. Thank you very much.
Any additional in-person public comments? Seeing none, are there any WebEx public comment? DCA moderator, would you please open the Q&A for questions from the public?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. If there are no additional comments, I would like to ask the board secretary to call the roll and record the vote for this item.
This is Nalini Lali Tribble Agarwal, and I will now call the roll. Carmen Dones,
I'm going to abstain.
Sonia Pat Hansen. Aye. Sherman King absent. Michael Long.
Aye.
Justin Matthews. Sridevi Panala.
Aye.
Nalini Lali Tribble Agarwal. Aye. This motion has passed.
Thank you. We're going to take a 10-minute break now. Thank you and welcome back, everyone. I would like to ask for a roll call from the board secretary, please.
This is Nalini Lali Tribble, and I'll now call the roll. Carmen Dones.
Present.
Sonia Pat Hansen.
Present.
Sherman King absent. Michael Long.
Present.
Justin Matthews.
Present.
Sridevi Panala.
Present.
And Nalini Lali Tribble Agarwal present. Quorum is established.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 12, discussion and possible action on Education Committee report and recommendations. I will be presenting that report. I, as Chair of the Education Committee, will present this agenda item. Because there are action items that require individual recommendations, I'm going to report each item separately on the informational only items. A summary will be provided at the end of my report. First, we established a quorum and asked for public comment for items not on the agenda. There were public comments at the meeting. Next, the committee addressed Education Committee Agenda Item 3 regarding discussion and possible action on proposed statutory language amendments to Business and Profession Code, Section 1941. For your reference, this information regarding BPC Section 1941 is in the Education Committee meeting materials on pages 36 to 65. Dr. Petty reported that on February 20, 2020, the United States Department of Education sent a letter to state leaders notifying that as the USDE holds all accrediting agencies to the same standards, the distinctions between regional and national accrediting agencies are unfounded, that the USDE will no longer use the terms regional or national to refer to an accrediting agency, and that the USDE will distinguish only between institutional and programmatic accrediting agencies. Additionally, she stated that at the board's July 19, 2024 Education Committee meeting, the members engaged in a robust discussion regarding amending BPC Section 1941 to align with USDE accreditation agency terminology. The committee tabled the discussion and requested for the staff to research the feasibility and implications in changing the BPC Section 1941 and to bring the research back to the board at a future scheduled meeting for consideration. Yesterday, November 15, 2024, during the Education Committee meeting, the members again engaged in a robust discussion and determined the change is warranted. Therefore, the Education Committee recommends for the full board to consider, complete, and approve the final draft of a proposed statutory language amendment for BPC Section 1941 and direct staff to seek sponsored legislation for 2025. I would like to ask Executive Officer Anthony Lum to present on this item.
Thank you, President Jones. We have visitors that would like to present for information for the board. So if you'd like to come up and address the board, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me today. Oh, push.
Oh, it's on. It was on.
It's on. It's really a privilege to be here. My name is Rebecca Busaka. I am the president currently of the National Accreditation Commission. I have spent the last 30 years in the accreditation arena. And as such, I'm here to talk about this accreditation stipulation within your regulations. So, distinguished members of the board, I stand before you today with 3 decades of experience in accreditation and over 500 site evaluations under my belt. Hence, I respect your commitment to excellence in dental hygiene education. But today, I'm here to help the board address an urgent matter that affects the future of dental care in California. Foremost, there's a critical misalignment between your program approval criteria and state and federal law, as well as accreditation standards, one that's creating barriers for new RDH programs that can add much needed capacity to a talent pipeline shortage. Foremost, as you previously indicated, the U.S. Department of Education eliminated the distinction between regional and national accreditation. This wasn't a casual decision. It was a carefully considered response to our evolving educational landscape. Today, all institutional accreditors, regardless of historical categorization, must meet identical federal recognition criteria. They follow the same rigorous application procedures, undergo the same thorough review processes, and must demonstrate the same evidence to ensure quality. This isn't a matter of opinion, it's federal law. And following the 2020 regulatory changes, WASC Senior and ACCJC, the accreditors California has historically relied upon as regional, have changed their scope with the department and moved beyond historical geographic designations and now operate nationally. Even California's dental schools have revised their transfer policies to reflect this change. Let me share some examples. UCLA and UCSF schools of dentistry make no distinction regarding regional or national accreditation in their transfer policies. They focus on the quality and quantity of credits earned. The same is true across the Cal State system. For instance, CSU, East Bay, and Los Angeles explicitly accept nationally recognized credits. Also, other prominent schools in California, including USC's Herman Ostrow School of Dentistry and Western University of Health Sciences College of Dental Medicine, require coursework to be accredited by an accreditor nationally recognized by the department. These policies include all accreditors across the nation, including APHES, the Accrediting Bureau for Health Education Schools, which has been recognized by the Secretary of Education since 1969. Their scope includes institutional accreditation of certificates up through master's degrees. Also, APHES maintains standards for Dental Assisting 1 and Dental Assisting 2 programs, and has consistently evaluated these programs and their outcomes since 2010. Good news is APHES accredited institutions offering dental hygiene programs are achieving excellence, with many seeing 100% pass rates on the National Dental Hygiene Board exams in both 2022 and 2023. To reiterate, DHBC's regulations still categorize accreditation as regional, which does not align with the accreditors I mentioned, institutional transfer policies, nor the following state, federal, and accreditation regulations. Number one, the California Code of Regulations makes no distinction between regional and national accreditation and only mandates institutional accreditation. Specifically, CCR Section 1105 describes institutional accreditation requirements as an agency recognized by the United States Department of Education or Council for Higher Education accreditation. Number two, the California Education Code requires only institutional accreditation by an agency recognized by the Secretary. Specifically, Section 94-885.1 of the California Private Post-Secondary Education Act requires degree-granting institutions approved by the Bureau of Private Post-Secondary Education to be institutionally accredited by an agency recognized by the Secretary. The CEC makes no distinction between regional and national accreditation. Number three, CODA standards require only that programs be, quote, sponsored by institutions of higher education that are accredited by an institutional accrediting agency recognized by the United States Department of Education. And four, Federal Aid Regulations 34 CFR 668.14 require accredited schools to ensure that their programs satisfy state educational requirements for professional licensure or certification in states where students intend to seek employment. The regulation also mandates that students must be able to qualify for any necessary licensure or certification examinations upon completion. It is clear from yesterday's meeting, Some individuals may resist this change, claiming it threatens quality. But quality isn't about accreditation geography. It's about the rigorous standards being applied consistently. Every accreditor recognized by the department must demonstrate their effectiveness as quality assurance entities. That's part of the education triad, which includes state, federal, and accreditation oversight. For example, DHBC approved schools must demonstrate compliance with CCR 1105 criteria when obtaining a state license with the BPPE, during the DHBC application stage, and through CODA accreditation processes. Given these findings, I propose the board adopt the staff's changes to BPC 1941 regulations to include institutionally recognized accreditors and allow current applicants to proceed with new RDH programs. The quality of dental hygiene won't be compromised. It will be enhanced by these changes. The public won't be put at risk. They'll gain greater access to care, and your commitment to excellence won't be diminished. It will be strengthened by embracing a more inclusive, evidence-based approach to accreditation. Plus, these changes will yield immediate benefits for the board, including streamlined program approvals, clear guidelines for stakeholders, and most importantly, expanded opportunities for students to transfer credits nationwide, sit for licensure exams, and access federal financial aid for RDH programs. I want to thank you for your time and attention to this matter, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we take any questions, is there a motion on the table for, please make a motion and identify yourself. This is Carmen Dones. I move for the board to accept the Education Committee's recommendation to complete the draft of proposed statutory language and recommend to the full board to consider, complete, and approve the final draft of the proposed statutory language amendment for BPC Section 1941 and direct staff to seek sponsored legislation for 2025. Is there a second?
Long second.
Thank you. Is there any board member discussion? Seeing none, is there any in-person public comments?
Good morning again, everyone. Edward Cramp of the Dwayne Morse Law Firm. I'm here today on behalf of a client who would like to have a program approved by the board eventually. They have submitted an application to the staff, which is being currently reviewed. The holdup is that they are not regionally accredited. They are accredited by an institutional accreditor recognized by the United States Department of Education. Just about this client, they are currently approved institutionally by the California Bureau for Private Post-Secondary Education, the Board of Registered Nursing, the Board of Vocational Nursing and Psychiatric Technicians, the California Department of Public Health, Radiologic Health Branch, and the Dental Board to offer programs in the state. Their programs include not just certificates and associate level programs, but also bachelor level and master's level programs, including a Bachelor of Science in Nursing to Masters of Science in Nursing program that is approved by the California Board of Registered Nursing. They are accredited by ABHES, which was mentioned by the prior speaker, which is an institutional accreditor recognized by the U.S. Department of Education. They are also programmatically accredited by at least 5 different programmatic accreditors, including CAPT, which accredits physical therapy programs, CAHEP for diagnostic medical sonography, JRCERT, which is for radiologic technicians, and JRCNMT for nuclear medical technicians. They have spent so far an enormous amount of time and effort to get the application ready to go, and they're committed to seeing it through to get approval from this board. However, they are currently held up because of the language in the code, which refers to a regional accreditor. We we really appreciate the staff's time and commitment to try, and this board, to trying to make a change in the law to conform with what is federal law. However, we would urge the board to consider recognizing now, even before there is a change in regulation and a change in statute, that we can read the language of the current code in a way that makes sense. So currently the way the code reads is that
15 seconds.
the institution must have be regionally accredited by an accreditor recognized by the United States Department of Education. We would encourage you simply to read out the language regional and just read it as an accreditor recognized by the United States Department of Education. There is support in the law.
2 minutes are up.
For reading, and we hope that you will today take action to go ahead and allow this application to move forward so that this institution and its potential students don't have to wait any longer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any additional in-person public comments? Seeing none, are there any WebEx public comments? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the Q&A feature for public comment?
Thank you, Madam President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I will now ask our board secretary, Nalini Lali Tribble Agarwal, to please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item.
This is Nalini Lali Tribble Agarwal, and I will now call the roll. Carmen Jones.
Aye.
Sonia Pat Hansen.
Aye.
Sherman King absent. Michael Long.
Aye.
Justin Matthews.
Nay.
Sridevi Panala.
Aye.
Nalini Lali Tribble Agarwal. Aye. This motion has passed.
Thank you. Next, the committee addressed Education Committee Agenda Item 4, discussion and possible action on proposed regulatory language amendments to the California Code of Regulation, Title 16, Section 1105.2, regarding student competency in providing dental hygiene care for all classifications of periodontal disease. I will provide a summary of that report. For your reference, the information regarding 16 CCR Section 1105.2 little e in the Education Committee meeting materials is on page 67 to 89. Dr. Petty reported that during the review of several dental hygiene education programs, staff discovered some programs are not requiring students to treat stage 3 severe and stage 4 very severe periodontal disease patients in violation of DHBC and Commission on Dental Accreditation of the American Dental Association CODA requirements of breadth of experience and student competency in patient experiences in all classifications of periodontal disease. President Dones asked staff to research establishing guidelines for 16 CCR Section 1105.2 little e and CODA Standard 2-14 regarding competency in providing dental hygiene care for all types of classifications of periodontal disease. Yesterday, November 15, 2024, during the Education Committee meeting, the members again engaged in a robust discussion and determined the change is warranted. Therefore, the Education Committee
recommends for the full board to consider and approve the language approved by the Education Committee. If the full board approves the language, directs staff to submit the language to the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs and the Business, Consumer Services and Housing Agency for review, and if no adverse comments are received, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, make any non-substantive changes to the package, and set the matter for a hearing if requested. If no adverse comments are received during the 45-day comment period and no hearing is requested, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking and adopt the proposed regulation as at section 1105.05.2 little e as noticed. Is there a board member motion? Please identify yourself and make the motion. Yes.
Since the language changed yesterday, materials to the one.
Yes. Yes, please.
So the language approved by the the committee, the educational committee to amend 16 CCR section 1105.2 lowercase e to state an educational program shall provide for breadth of experience and student competency in patient experiences in all classifications of periodontal disease, in patient experiences in all, stagings, in all stages of periodontal disease as defined by the American Academy of Periodontology.
Thank you.
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. Just a brief revision on President Doan's presentation. If those of you looking for the page numbers, it was actually from yesterday's Education Committee meeting instead of today's meeting materials. So just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
This is Board Member Matthews. I move for the full board to consider and approve the language approved by the Education Committee for 16 CCR section 1105.2E. If the full board approves the language, I move to direct staff to submit the language to the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs and the Business, Consumer Services and Housing Agency for review. And if no adverse comments are received, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, make any non-substantive changes to the package, and set the matter for a hearing if requested. If no adverse comments are received during the 45-day comment period and no hearing is requested, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking and adopt the proposed regulations at section 1105.2E as noticed.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I, Sonia Hansen, seconded.
Thank you. Is there any board member discussion? Seeing none, are there any in-person public comments?
Good morning, Board.
Good morning.
My name is Kimberly Pennington. I'm the Program Director for Concord Career College. And I would like to say that I do feel like that putting the stages in really helps clarify what the board is asking and what our regulations are asking for with CODA. I feel like it gives a clear outline of what is expected. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional in-person public comments? Seeing none, are there any WebEx public comments? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the Q&A feature for public comment?
Thank you, Madam President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. I see we do have a request for comment from Lisa. Pardon me, I'm just trying to find her here. Lisa Kamibayasha, and I'm sure I mispronounced her name. I apologize. Lisa, you should be able to unmute yourself. There you go. You're unmuted, Lisa.
Lisa Kamibayashi from Director of the West Los Angeles College Dental Hygiene Program. I do agree to have this set standard of American AAP or periodontal disease classification to be, part of the educational requirement. However, some languages like including all stages, all meaning classification 1 through 4. Certainly, it is durable to see the stage 1 through 3, but stage 4 is a severe periodontal case, which can be needing extraction, immediate referral, and then it could be really difficult to find those stage 4. And I just wanted to have a more clear clarification of what do you expect students to do? Actually treat the patient or consultation or referral to those individual who has severe periodontal disease. I need a little bit more clarification. And then also using the terminology of stages, maybe I don't know, too strict, not too strict, but it's not too specific actually, because AAP can change their terminology. Over 30 years, they changed the languages many times, and then having this in regulation may cause some issue in the future because they could easily change the terminology from the AAP side. So I just wanted to have a little bit more broader terminology used in a periodontal classification. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is a moderator. I see no further requests for comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. If there are no additional comments, I would like to ask Board Secretary to call the roll and record the vote.
This is Nalini Lally Triple Agrawal, and I will now call the roll. Carmen Dones.
Aye.
Sonia Pat Hansen. Aye. Sherman King absent. Michael Long.
Aye.
Justin Matthews.
Aye.
Sri Devi Panala.
Aye.
Nalini Lally Triple Agrawal. Aye. This motion has passed.
Thank you. Next, the committee acted upon Education Committee Agenda Item 5 regarding discussion and possible action on the status of the Concord Career College San Diego Dental Hygiene Education Program. I'm going to defer this to Dr. Dina Petty.
Thank you, Dr. Dones. For your reference, the information regarding Concord Career College San Diego is in the Education Committee meeting materials on pages 91 to 109. On October 15th, board staff conducted a site visit at CCCSD, Concord Career College San Diego. At that visit, CCCSD was determined to have 6 violations. The most egregious of the violations is that CCCSD failed to ensure dental hygiene students completed all requirements for competency established by the board and CODA. Therefore, several of cohort 16 and 17 graduates did not meet all the HBC and CODA requirements to receive licensure as verified through review documentation. At the committee meeting yesterday, the Education Committee voted to table this subject because the deadline for CCCSD to submit information was yesterday. And therefore, it was not enough time for staff to review. So the board graciously allowed board staff to table this discussion and allow board staff to work with CCCSD in order to come into compliance and review the information. However, board staff forgot, and board staff apologizes profusely, that the whole purpose of the board visit was not only to review the new program director, but to review the facilities to increase enrollment at CCCSD. And so as at the November 2023 board meeting, the board gave permission to CCCSD to expand facilities. And once board staff went down to verify the facilities, the CCCSD had requested to increase enrollment from 24 to 32 students, so an increase of 8 students. And the whole, one of the reasons board staff went down there was to confirm that this was feasible. When board staff did go down, it is feasible. They did a beautiful job on their facilities. And so board staff has no concerns regarding allowing the increase in enrollment due to the facilities. And on, let's see, December 7th of 2023, so after the board meeting, the CODA, the Commission on Dental Accreditation, accepted a permanent increase in enrollment of 8 students per year, increasing from 24 to 32. So they're approved by CODA for an increase in enrollment. And so the CCCSD is awaiting your final approval for expanding students permanently. Any questions? Hopefully you were able to follow that.
So I need
May I suggest a motion?
yes. Okay. So this is Carmen Dones, and I move to increase enrollment to 8 students.
No, from 24 to 32 students.
From 24 to 34 students.
32.
Oh, 32, sorry.
At the Concord Career College Dental, San Diego Dental Hygiene Educational Program.
Okay. So I'm going to do that one more time. So I move to increase enrollment from 24 students to 32 students at the Concord College, San Diego. Is that the right one?
Concord Career College, San Diego, yes. And it would be a permanent increase, not a temporary.
Permanent increase.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any board member discussion? Seeing none, are there any in-person public comments? Seeing none, are there any WebEx public comments? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the Q&A feature for public comment?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. I would now like to ask our board secretary to take roll on this vote.
This is Nalini Lally Tribble Agarwal, and I would like to call the roll. Carmen Dones.
Aye.
Sonia Pat Hansen.
Aye.
Sherman King absent. Mike Long.
Aye.
Justin Matthews.
Aye.
Sridevi Panala.
Aye.
Nalini Lally Tribble Agarwal. Aye. This motion has passed.
Thank you. In addition, there was the discussion yesterday with regards to the Concord Career College, San Diego, and the tabling the citation and fine until their letter was received. And if I can have Adina can speak to that one as well. I think we're going to be voting to table that, correct? Okay. Do you want to speak to that or?
So yesterday, that item was tabled because staff did not have enough time to review the response from CCCSD. So therefore, the board or the committee did not feel they had enough information to make a motion or continue on with the motion that was presented prior.
Thank you. Is there a board member motion? Please identify yourself and make a motion to table the citation and fine for Concord Career College, San Diego.
This is Michael Long. I move that the board tables the discussion to fine and cite Career College, Concord Career College, San Diego.
Thank you. Is there a second?
This is Nalini Tribble. I second that.
Thank you. Is there any board discussion? Seeing none, are there any in-person public comments? Seeing none, are there any WebEx public comments? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the Q&A feature for public comment?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the fields in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. I would now like to ask our Board Secretary, Nalini Lally Tribble Agarwal, to please call the roll and record votes for this agenda item.
This is Nalini Lally Tribble Agarwal, and I'd like to now call the roll. Carmen Dones.
Aye.
Sonia Pat Hansen.
Aye.
Sherman King absent. Michael Long.
Aye.
Justin Matthews. Sridevi Panala. Nalini Lally Tribble Agarwal. Aye. This motion has passed.
Thank you. Next, the committee acted upon Education Code Agenda Item 6 regarding dental hygiene education program site visit update and schedule. For your reference, the information regarding BPC Section 1941 are in the Education Committee meeting materials from yesterday on pages 111 to 130. Dr. Petty reported updates on Pasadena City College, Carrington College, Sacramento, Cypress College, Taft College, Cabrillo College, Concord Career College, San Diego, as well as the upcoming dental hygiene education program site visit schedule. Is there any board member discussion? Seeing none, are there any in-person public comments?
Good morning, everyone. Travaris here as Vice President of Instruction, Cabrillo College. I'd like to comment on the October 8th report regarding safety concerns at Cabrillo College. So you have a report of pretty concerning safety reports, and they were concerning certainly to me. Those reports were based off of an initial report from some students that reported that two other students tried to run them over in a car. As a result, the program coordinator removed those students from the dental hygiene program. So this was problematic for a couple of reasons. One, it was without due process. And two, this happened outside of the dental hygiene program, and it really should have gone to our dean of students for a formal investigation, which initially it did not. After which, once the dean of students was made aware, we conducted a formal investigation. So did the Santa Cruz Sheriff's Office. We have video surveillance, and this actually was found that the students didn't try to run the students over in a car. And however, the students were allowed to come back into the program because they were moved without due process. And that caused a lot of unrest within the program. And rumors were flying around that they attempted to run these students over, which ultimately we found not to be true. But because the students were in the program and these rumors were going around, students reported feeling unsafe. And the unsafe was really based off of a lot of rumors. We didn't find that it was an unsafe environment. We had administrators, mostly deans, sitting in the outside of the dental hygiene clinic, monitoring for safety. The sheriff's office was called, and the sheriff's office did not find that anyone was at threat. In your report, there are some claims of assault. We didn't find that assaults had occurred. And we also didn't find that these students had legitimately tried to run other students over with a car. And there were some other concerns regarding our compressors, which we submitted a letter yesterday showing you that that has been replaced.
Are there any additional public comments?
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. I just wanted to quickly address the comments that were just made. Our letter and our site visit to Carrillo College was based upon complaints. And as I previously mentioned in my presentation, that we would conduct either announced or unannounced site visits according to the law based upon complaints that we receive from students, faculty, administration, or anybody at that school. When the determination came out of what was identified as far as deficiencies were concerned, we only focused on the deficiencies identified in the dental hygiene program. Anything external with a lot of the comments that were made as far as the reports that we received and the like, anything referenced outside of the dental hygiene program itself were not addressed by us. That's outside of our purview, and that's for Carrillo College to handle. I made that very clear in my letter to Carrillo College, and they have their opinion as well, but that's our stance, and that's what my letter stated. So I just wanted to inform the board that that's how we acted on it in identifying the deficiencies in the dental hygiene program itself. Thank you.
I would like to comment. I appreciate that the students, faculty, and any staff at Cabrillo addressed the dental hygiene board with their concerns and file any complaint. Reading the findings from staff, I was almost appalled by some of the things I read, including witness sexual harassment, witness assault of student, faculty, and staff, fear for personal physical safety, fear of retaliation, and this goes, to higher administration as well. So I do welcome students and faculty and staff of all dental hygiene programs if they need the board to intervene and they need somebody to report to please reach out to us.
Anthony Lum, Executive Officer again. That's wonderful that the students are able to reach out, but a lot of the issues that they did identify are issues outside of our purview. and it's something that the school itself should be handling and have a procedure in place to do so. So again, our focus is the dental hygiene program. If whatever incidents occurred outside of the program, that is for the school to handle and determine. Thank you.
This is Sonia Hansen, and my question will be more in the line of professionalism. If there's issues with the students making accusations to other students, obviously, if the students retain their academic year, it makes it kind of concerning that this is going to be graduates, supposed to be professionals, supposed to stay at the standards of every level. And having to see this, even though it's out of the scope of the board, it's concerning to have professionals going out and having this kind of behavior. So this is something that I find concerning.
Are there any WebEx public comments? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the Q&A feature for public comment?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Next, the committee acted upon Education Committee Agenda Item 7 regarding discussion and possible action to establish a task force to create a penalty rubric for the dental hygiene education programs found non-compliant of the board's laws and code of standards. For your reference, the information regarding BPC Section 1941 are in the Education Committee meeting materials on page 132 from yesterday's meeting. Executive Officer Lum reported that in 2023, the board promulgated regulations regarding reviews, site visits, citations and fines, and probationary status for dental hygiene education programs. California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Section 1104.3. Within the regulation, subdivision b3 established factors to be considered in the issuance of any citation or fine to a dental hygiene educational program. As the established factors may be subjective, board staff requested the Education Committee establish a task force to formulate a dental hygiene education program penalty rubric, thereby promoting the consistent application penalties against dental hygiene education programs in violation of the Dental Hygiene Board of California laws, regulations, and code of standards. The task force makeup should be 2 board members and subject matter experts with dental hygiene education program knowledge. The Education Committee recommends to the full board to establish a task force to formulate a dental hygiene education program penalty rubric, thereby establishing consistent penalties against dental hygiene education programs in violation of the Dental Hygiene Board laws, regulations, and code of standards. Is there a board member motion? Please identify yourself and make a motion.
This is Shri Ponala. I move for the board to accept the Education Committee's recommendation to establish a task force to formulate a dental hygiene educational program penalty rubric, thereby establishing consistent penalties against dental hygiene education programs in violation of Dental Hygiene Board of California laws, regulation, and code of standards.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Is there any board member discussion?
Dr. Downs, is this something that the task force that we would establish today with task force members?
No, what we would do is this is just authorization to create the task force. In the meantime, staff will work to obtain those individuals and bring it back in March for approval for those individuals.
Thank you. Are there any in-person public comments? Seeing none, are there any WebEx public comments? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the Q&A feature for public comment?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Will Board Secretary Nalini Lali Tribble Agrawal please call roll and record votes for this agenda item?
This is Nalini Lali Tribble Agrawal, and I'd like to call the roll. Carmen Dones.
Aye.
Sonia Pat Hansen.
Aye.
Sherman King absent. Michael Long.
Aye.
Justin Matthews.
Aye.
Sridevi Panala.
Aye.
Nalini Lali Tribble Agrawal. Aye. The motion has passed.
Thank you. Lastly, I would like to present my report on the Education Committee's informational item, Education Program Item 8, future agenda items. The committee additionally asked for any future agenda items for the committee to address. There were no future items suggested. Is there a board member motion to accept the full Education Committee report? Please identify yourself and make the motion.
This is Michael Long. I move for the board to accept the Education Committee's full report.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Sonia Hansen, I second that.
Thank you. Is there any board member discussion?
I do want to make one more comment regarding the discussion about students reporting, and to the gentleman's comment that represented Cabrillo College. I do feel that it's a board issue when the environment, the educational environment, is an unhealthy place for students to learn. I don't think they've received their full education as you know, our regs suggest. So I appreciate what EO alum said, but I still believe this affects their education directly.
Thank you. Adina?
I would just like to clarify anything in EO alum's letter and my report was solely for the dental hygiene program. It did not include any external issues. It was, you know, strictly limited to the dental hygiene program itself.
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. Like I said in my presentation, when we do receive complaints from students for their safety, we definitely do take that in consideration. We will talk to the school about those issues. However, it's nothing officially that we can provide that other than looking after their safety and a healthy environment. And that's the emphasis that we push on the schools, so that way the students do have a good, healthy learning environment. So then, you know, once we identify the issues, we relate it to the program director, the administration if need be, and in this case, it was relayed to them. So then it's up to them to take the baton and make sure that their students are in a healthy environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any in-person public comments? Seeing none, are there any WebEx public comments? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the Q&A feature for public comment?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. I would now like to ask Board Secretary Nalini Lali Tribble Agarwal to please call the roll and record votes for this agenda item.
This is Nalini Lali Tribble Agrawal, and I'd like to call the roll. Carmen Dones.
Aye.
Sonia Pat Hansen.
Aye.
Sherman King absent. Michael Long.
Aye.
Justin Matthews,
Aye.
Sridevi Pannala,
Aye.
Nalini Lally Agrawal, aye. This motion has passed.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 13, discussion and possible action on legislation and regulatory committee report and recommendations. I would like our committee chair, Nalini Lally Agrawal, to present the summary.
This is Nalini Lally Agrawal, the committee's chair, to present the Legislative and Regulatory Committee report. We also had individual action items to address, like the Education Committee, so they'll be reported individually. A summary of the informational items will be provided at the end of my report. The Legislative and Regulatory Committee established a quorum and asked for public comment for items not on the agenda. There were public comments. The committee reviewed legislative and regulatory agenda items 3, discussion and possible actions regarding California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Section 1005, Minimum Standards to Infection Control. For your reference, this information for 16 CCR Section 1005 is in the Legislative and Regulatory Committee meeting materials on pages 143 to 156. I would like to now defer to EO Tony, Mr. Lum, to continue.
Thank you, Chair Nalini Lally Agrawal. This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. This regulatory section, we actually started working on back in 2018 with prior board members and the Dental Board of California. And a lot of people since that time, it kind of got put on hold, obviously, because of the pandemic, but a lot of people since that time have reviewed these regulations, revised it as appropriate in collaboration with both of our programs, the Dental Board and the Dental Hygiene Board. And what we've presented to the committee is the draft of those regulations, and their task force and our subject matter experts, both member Michael Long and Dr. Adina Petty, helped the review of these regulations as presented to us from the Dental Board. And so what we did was present these to the Legislative and Regulatory Committee yesterday for approval. And that's kind of the short background on this whole regulatory section. They are supposed to be reviewed currently on an annual basis, but I think that's a little too frequent. But they will be moving forward, be reviewed periodically. Thank you.
Is there a board member motion? Please identify yourself and then make a motion.
I, Sonia Hansen, I move to the board to accept the Legislative and Regulatory Committee's recommendations for the full board to consider and approve the final draft in proposed statutory language amendments for 16 CCR Section 1005.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Is there any board member discussion? Seeing none, are there any in-person public comments?
Hello, Tukazo Kai, representing the California Dental Association. I did share this yesterday during the committee meeting, and CDA can send formal comments as well. But we do want to raise two concerns that we have about the infection control language as it's currently written with these edits. The first is about the additional annual training in infection control during working hours, this being something really new, and there being other infection control laws and regulations. And including the facility infection control plan, we're a little worried with the annual 2-hour license course renewal, annual OSHA BBP training, plus the 8-hour infection control course, that this additional training is going to be duplicative of existing trainings and just be another activity for the teams to integrate into their working hours. The second concern is item 4A on page 150. And this is the language of protective eyewear to include top and side shields. We're not sure how readily available they are. I did a quick Google search and couldn't really find a lot of these readily available. We saw that the citation is kind of more for an industrial standard for grinding and welding. With COVID-19 and other infectious diseases, we do want to promote safety above all else. We just want to make sure that the kinds of protective eyewear being recommended are readily available. And we're just concerned that the statement may be misinterpreted as a requirement. So we just recommend some language to reflect the suitable standard for dentistry and the options rather than it being a form interpreted as a requirement. Thank you.
This is Anthony Lum. I just wanted to make one more comment for the board's consideration as well. What we're looking at is to ratify the draft language today, and then in collaboration with the dental board, they will be forwarded over to them to review at their February meetings. So it won't be just us approving them. It'll be the dental board reviewing them once again after our approval. Thank you.
Good morning, Tracy Montez, Executive Officer of the Dental Board. Yes, just to echo EO Lum, we would greatly appreciate approval here at the board because this is something that the Office of Administrative Law looks for in collaboration, is approval from your board as well as our board. So we will be taking this up at our February 2025 board meeting, assuming that it is approved here. And our board will also have a chance to take into consideration these comments. I will say, though, with regard to duplicative, we don't think it's duplicative because it is tailored to the particular facility. It's not just a course in infection control, and that's very important. And also with regard to the top the top and the side shields. It is, although it does reference an industrial standard, it is referenced also in CDC. And it's something, again, that we can discuss further with our dentist professions, as well as when we go out to the 45-day comment period to see if that is an issue. But I know there's plenty of literature that does address the side shields, and we have had some discussions that the top part is also accessible. But I think at this point, it's a very strong update. And again, I'd like to thank Dr. Petty and Mr. Long for their input because we worked exceptionally hard the last few months trying to craft this out to get this moving. So thank you.
Thank you. I have a question. So will the dental hygiene board and the dental board have a 45-day review period, or is it just?
It's just the dental board. It's our regulations, but you could comment. Anybody can comment, the public, associations, the boards, and so forth. So as it continues moving along, we would continue having these dialogues and so forth.
Great, thank you. Are there any WebEx public comments? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the Q&A feature for public comment?
Thank you. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. I would now like to ask the board staff, Crystal Yuyama, to please call the roll and record votes for this agenda item. Oh, she stepped away. Okay.
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. I will substitute for Crystal as she's out picking up our lunch. Okay, on this agenda item for the vote, Carmen Dones,
Aye.
Sonia Pad Hansen, Sherman King is absent, Michael Long, Justin Matthews,
Aye.
Sridevi Ponala,
Aye.
and Nalini Lally Tribble Aguilar.
Aye.
Motion is passed, and I return it to the Ledge Reg Chair. Thank you.
The committee reviewed legislative and regulatory agenda item 4, discussion and possible action to seek new legislation for Business and Professions Code, BPC sections 1915.1, 1926.3, 1941, 1944, and 1961.5. For your reference, the information for BPC sections 19151, 1926.3, 1941, 1944, and 1961.5 are in the Legislative and Regulatory Committee meeting materials on page 158 to 244. Staff drafted new amended statutory language for BPC sections 1915.1, 1926.3, 1941, 1944, and 1961.5, and requested the Legislation and Regulatory Committee to review the existing statutory language to determine whether the changes were warranted. The Legislative and Regulatory Committee determined the changes were warranted and completed the draft of the proposed statutory language. The Legislative and Regulatory Committee recommends to the full board to consider, complete, and approve the final draft of proposed statutory language amendments for BPC sections 19151, 1926.3, 1941, 1944, and 1961.5, and direct staff to seek sponsored legislation for 2025.
Thank you. Is there a board member motion? Please identify yourself and then make a motion.
Thank you. Since 1915.1 differed from the board meeting materials that the Ledge Reg Committee voted on, do you want me to voice that change?
Yes, please.
Okay. So in 1915.1, in section lowercase d7, wait, I'm sorry, lowercase d6, the dental hygiene student shall, what? No, I'm sorry. 5, thank you. Little d5, okay, here we go. Supervision ratios and dental hygiene student oversight while performing clinical procedures shall be at a minimum of 1 clinical supervising faculty member to 5 dental hygiene students. So that clinical was added in. So only during clinical procedures will you need the 1:5 ratio, as the board wanted.
Thank you for the clarification. Is there a board member motion? Please identify yourself and then make a motion.
This is Board Member Matthews. I move for the board to accept the Legislative and Regulatory Committee's recommendation to consider, complete, and approve the final draft of proposed statutory language amendments for BPC sections 1915.1 as just read, 1926.3, 1941, 1944, 1961.5, and direct staff to seek sponsored legislation for 2025.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Sonia Hansen, I second that.
Thank you. Is there any board member discussion? Seeing none, are there any in-person public comments?
Hello, Kimberly Pennington. I just had a question about this regarding, so this is for volunteer, correct? If you're going to volunteer. And Does that mean that they can perform, I mean, scaling and root planing and any kind of clinical, as long as there is a dental hygiene staff there? And a supervising dentist as well?
Okay, let me pull it up and I'll let you know. So we added in, of course I closed it out, right? Here it is. Okay, so it would be any, so if you look at lowercase d6, it says the dental hygiene student is prohibited, the dental hygiene student shall perform only those procedures authorized by subdivision A of section 1908, subdivision A and B of section 1910, subdivision A of 1911 and 1911.5. So that would not include bleaching, it would include from those sections. I mean, after, I can give you those sections afterwards. But it's mainly, yes, scaling, root planing, all that. It's just, they're not able to do, I think, local anesthesia and there's a couple things.
Okay.
Curettage, nitrous.
Okay.
So just.
But they can do that without local anesthesia. They can perform that without a supervising dentist. Okay.
Right. It would be supervising faculty.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any additional public comments? Seeing none. DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the Q&A feature for public comment?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the fields in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment, Madam President. I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. I would now like to ask our Executive Officer, Anthony Lum, to please call the roll and record votes for this agenda item.
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer, taking the role for the Ledge agenda item, or full board agenda item, I should say, in regards to proposed legislation. Carmen Dones?
Aye.
Sonia Pat Hansen? Sherman King absent. Michael Long? Justin Matthews? Sridevi Punala? And Nalini Lali Tribble Pegawar. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next, the committee reviewed legislative and regulatory agenda items 5. Discussion and possible action for non-substantive changes to the board statutes through the 2025 Omnibus Bill. I would like to defer to President Dones for the summary of this agenda item. For your reference, the information for 2025 Omnibus Bill amendments is in the Legislative and Regulatory Committee meeting materials on pages 168 to 169. Each year, the Senate Committee on Business Professions and Economic Development Committee sponsors an omnibus bill to address any non-substantive changes in existing statute to help clarify, define, or correct the information that's in the language. Committee staff has contacted us for any omnibus bill recommendations to be submitted to them by the mid-January deadline for the inclusion in the bill. As board staff has identified several non-substantive statutory changes to assist the public with clarity and consistency, the Legislative and Regulatory Committee recommends acceptance of board staff non-substantive nomenclature statutory changes for the omnibus bill. Additionally, the Legislative and Regulatory Committee recommends the delegation of authority to the executive officer to recommend any non-substantive changes in existing statute to be forwarded to the Senate Committee on Business Professions and Economic Development for review.
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. Just to add on top of that, the changes that we've identified for the omnibus bill, there's very few, so we have it easy this year. It's on the Ledge Reg Committee meeting materials on page 168 and 169. And basically, it's a nomenclature issue. We just added dental or dental hygiene to specific sections of the law. So that way it delineates our two programs and makes it clearer for the public to read who the language is addressing. And that's pretty much it. There's, I think, basically 6 changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion from a board member? Please identify yourself and then make a motion.
This is Board Member Matthews. I move for the board to accept the Legislative and Regulatory Committee's recommendation to accept the non-substantive nomenclature statutory changes for the Omnibus bill. Additionally, I move for the full board to accept the Legislative and Regulatory Committee recommendation to delegate authority to the executive officer to recommend any non-substantive changes in existing statute to be forwarded to the Senate Committee on Business, Professions, and Economic Development for review.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any board member discussion? Seeing none, are there any in-person public comments?
Thank you, Madam President. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Do we have any in-person public comment? Seeing none, I would now like to ask our Executive Officer, Anthony Lum, to please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item.
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer, taking the roll call for the Omnibus Bill legislative proposal. Carmen Dones?
Aye.
Sonia Pat Hansen? Sherman King is absent. Michael Long? Justin Matthews? Sridevi Ponala? And Nalili Lali Tribble Agawar. Motion passes.
Next, the committee reviewed legislative and regulatory agenda item 6, regulatory update, status of Dental Hygiene Board of California regulatory packages. I once again defer to Dr. Petty to present this agenda item. For your reference, the information for DHBC regulatory packages is in the Legislative and Regulatory Committee meetings materials on pages 171 to 173. Dr. Adina Petty reported as to the current status of 16 CCR sections 116 mobile dental hygiene clinics, 1116.5 RDHAP practice registration, and 1105.4 appeals process and reinstatement of withdrawn DHEPs.
Is there any board member discussion? Seeing none, are there any in-person public comments? Seeing none, are there any WebEx public comments? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the Q&A feature for public comment?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. We're going to take the opportunity to go to lunch and then we will continue back in 1 hour. Welcome back, everybody.
I would like to ask the board secretary, Nalini Agarwal, to call the roll.
This is Nalini Lally Tribble. I'd like to call the roll. Carmen Dones.
Present.
Sonia Pat Hansen.
Present.
Sherman King absent. Michael Long.
Present.
Justin Matthews.
Present.
Sridevi Pannala.
Present.
Nalini Lally Tribble Agarwal. Present. A quorum is established.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will now report on legislative and regulatory agenda item 7, legislative update, bills of interest and legislative calendar. Dr. Adina Petty provided an overview of the final status of previously reported 2024 legislation that was of interest for the board. The legislation information is available in the Legislative and Regulatory Committee meeting materials on pages 175 to 182. Finally, the committee asked for any future agenda items for the committee to address. There were none. Future items suggested. Is there a board member motion to accept the Legislative and Regulatory Committee report? Please identify yourself and make the motion.
Board Member Shri Punala, I move for the full board to accept the Legislative and Regulatory Committee's report.
Is there a second?
Matthews, second.
Is there any board member discussion? Is there any in-person comments? I think there's one more.
Half my name now.
Are there any WebEx comments? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the Q&A feature for public comment?
Thank you so much. I've opened the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Will board staff Chris Oniyama please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item?
Is it working? This is Crystal, and I will now call the roll. Carmen Dones. Aye. Sonia Pat Hansen.
Aye.
Sherman King. Absent. Michael Long.
Aye.
Justin Matthews. Sridevi Pannala. Nalini Lally Tribble Agarwal.
Aye.
The motion has passed.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 14, enforcement update, statistical report. This is informational only, and I would like to ask Mr. Albert Law, Assistant Executive Officer, to present this agenda item.
Thank you, President Dones. Good afternoon, board members. I'm Albert Law, the Board's Assistant Executive Officer, here to present the enforcement report. Detailed enforcement statistic can be found in the meeting materials beginning on page 91 through page 94. In them, you'll see the following. In the 24-25 fiscal year between July 1st, 2024 through October 31st, 2024, the board received 35 consumer complaints, 12 arrest conviction complaints. The board initiated 167 complaints, which are mostly initiated based on CE Baylor and the board issuing a citation and fine to licensees. And further, the board opened 12 applicant complaints. For this investigation, we closed 168 cases at the end of October 31st, 2024, and currently have 102 pending cases with 21 cases that's over 1 year old and only 1 case is over 2 years old. Compared to the end of the last 23-24 fiscal year, we had over 28 cases that were over 1 year old and 6 cases over 2 years old. So the enforcement unit is getting close to processing all cases that are over 2 years old and is working diligently on processing other cases over 1 year old. Our special investigator closed a total of 23 cases at the end of October 31st, 2024, with 26 pending cases. Of the 23 cases, only 3 cases are over 1 year old. The board issued a total of 95 citations and ordered $64,650 in fines and collected approximately $26,650 so far this fiscal year. As for the board's probation monitor, we addressed 10 probation violations, and during this reporting period, there were no positive drug screenings for any banned substances. That concludes my report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any board member discussion?
Excuse me, thank you.
Seeing none, are there any in-person public comments? Seeing none, are there any WebEx public comments? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the Q&A feature for public comment?
Thank you, Madam Board President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 15, licensing, continuing education audits, and examination update. This is a statistical report and informational only. I would like to ask Tracy Knappert, licensing manager, to present the licensing, continuing education audits, and examination statistics.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's Tracy Knappert, licensing manager. The licensing report is informational only. Attachment 1 on page 96 is the DHBC's RDH and RDHAP Law and Ethics Examination Report for fiscal year 24-25, which started July 1st, 2024 through October 31, 2024 is the last day that I did the final report. You will also see that the last 2 fiscal years, examination years, are added on the report just for comparison, so you can see the pass rates for the last few fiscal years. Okay, attachment number 2 on page 97 through 99. I have a correction for page 99. This is the licensing population through October 31st, 2024. You will see that our retired license population continues to increase. So we're starting to get a lot of licensees that are retiring their license as well. And again, I was correcting the delinquent licenses, which would have expired in 2019. You'll see that the number decreased because either their license canceled in October 1st of this year, or they either renewed their license by paying the renewal to bring their license to a current active or current inactive, or retired their license. Okay. Attachment number 3 on page 100 through 101 is the California dental hygiene licensing population ratio to the California general population. At the last meeting, one of the board members asked that I delineate the active licenses from the inactive licenses. So that's what I did, so that you can compare how many licenses we have. Then for continuing education, which is an update on page 102 to 103, you will see that the CE audits failure rate is consistent. It stands generally around 40% failure rate. It's important that all of our licensees understand that our staff, that the board staff is doing random audits, and we're going to start increasing the audits so that we'll get more, we're going to start auditing more licenses so that we can maintain consistency and making sure that our licensing population is in compliance. So I want to thank the CE analysts from doing a great job with doing their audits. So we are finding out a lot of the RDHAPs are failing their CE audits. So it's important that that all of our licensees are in compliance. And if you're not receiving any of the updates on the audits or any regulatory changes or anything like that, we encourage you to join our website, to join our email, because we have on our website now, right on the home page, it says join our email list. So you can just click on that and you can add your name to it so that you're in compliance. You can't say, well, I didn't know. We're sending out the information via email blast, as well as updating our website. So that is the end of my report. And if you have any questions, I'm open.
This is Carmen Dones. So I see on the continuing education audits, we did 696 in 22-23, and then in 23-24, half of that. And then again in 24-25, I know we're in the middle, well, we're almost at the end of the year. So I'm just wondering why there's been such a gap in the numbers of audits that we're doing.
So we have a new analyst. Okay. Before we didn't have an analyst to fill in that position. So because we had to go through the training, that we only gave them a limited amount of CE audits so they can get familiar with the process. Now we're increasing it. In addition, we have extra staff that will be assisting with the CE audits. That will be doing 50% of their job, doing the CE audits with the current CE analysts that we have. And you'll see that the numbers will increase. And Albert, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, and Dr. Dones, to add to that, in the fiscal year 2022 to 2023, we had a full-time CE audit analyst who was performing CE audits for that entire fiscal year. And she was promoted to our enforcement analyst in 23-24, which left the CE audit position vacant for a while until we hire another CE auditor to continue auditing in 2024. And like Tracy said, we also provided additional resources to the CE audit unit and made some changes to a position that is assisting with the continuing education audit as well. So the number will continue to go up, and I believe at the end of this fiscal year, we will have a record number of CE audits performed.
So the percentages are pretty much the same in the number of, in the percentages.
Unfortunately, the more that we are auditing, the more we're finding out that a lot of the licensees are not in compliance with laws and regulations with their CE requirements for renewal. And that is why we also have a heavy citation and fine that comes along with that as well.
And just remind me, what are we doing to improve the numbers? Like what type of marketing or are we doing for outreach to to the population to let them know that this is happening? I know we did the newsletter. It's very good. Thank you, Anthony and team. But what other types of marketing are we doing or outreach are we doing to inform the licensees of why we have so many failure rates in?
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. We're doing a number of things to inform licensees as best we can. We post information all the time on our website, new up-to-date information. And as Tracy indicated, we also send out email blasts to licensees who subscribe to our email list So if you're interested in that to get the latest information, that's the way that we do it as well. We're also going to begin more outreach. We just in the past haven't had the staff to do it or the resources at the current time. So we're increasing that aspect as well. And so as far as licensees, they can call the board at any time, email the board. We have a general email inbox that they can inquire about CE aspects. And I am seeing more emails in receipt of that in inquiring about CE requirements. So the numbers in our CE audits may go up, but for a while, I anticipate that the failure rate is going to stay the same.
And I was going to add that I do some outreach with the RDHAP programs, and I just did a PowerPoint. I wasn't available, but I did a PowerPoint, and I provided it to the UOP at this their last session, and I incorporated the continuing education portion to let them know that they still have to adhere to the CE requirements. So it's very important that that information is sent out to all of our licensees and potential licensees.
And then just one more thing. Did I hear you say that we're in the process of hiring an additional person, an analyst, or are we?
We just, we already have 1.5 staff that is completing CE audits. We used to only have one, but we have added additional half of the staff who dedicate half their time doing licensing and half their time doing CE audits to ensure that we meet the statutory limit of conducting 5% of our licensee population.
Okay. Thank you. Any other?
I have a question. I know I just renewed my license recently, and I uploaded my CE certificates. Can we make it so that, I don't know, just that automatically have people upload their CE certificates to show compliance?
You can always upload your certificates at renewal. However, because of staffing and how many licensees that renew, that will be really time consuming to look at every single certificate for every license that renews daily. So that's why we have the CE audit. And when you signed the renewal that you completed the CE under penalty of perjury, you are certifying that you have completed it. So if we do audit your license, you have to submit those CEs. Then at that time, we will go through each and every one of those CE certificates that you provide, because you are required by law to keep your CEs for a minimum of 6 years, which is 3 renewal cycles. So to do it, to just add it, that's just additional security for the licensee. However, staff cannot just go through and look at every single one of the certificates.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, this is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. Just as an example, I happen to be employed by another board who implemented full submission of all CEs. They needed 4 extra staff to handle that workload. So it is, and to be honest, a burdensome workload to address, especially when the licensees really don't need to submit it to us unless we request it. Thank you.
I'm curious if when there's a fail CE audit, if that's information that would be posted on, in the future, posted on our website as an enforcement related information.
This is Albert Law, Assistant Executive Officer. So because citation and fine is considered as administrative action, it is posted on the DCA license search website, and it is posted as administrative action and citation against their license. We are working on new statute, which the board had review as far as the limitation on the posting of citation, which we are proposing to limit to 3 years for any citations and fine after the resolution of a citation.
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. Just to piggyback on that, the legislation that was approved today, it also has a section where at the discretion and after appeal, the executive officer where additional authority would be there to remove a citation. Because the example that I gave yesterday was that If a licensee failed their CE audit, they're issued the administrative citation. However, they failed the audit because they couldn't produce the required CE documentation. But let's say 2 months down the road, you found it in your file cabinet. I'm dating myself there, file cabinet. But say you found it and then you submit it back to us to show that you were actually in compliance, then that allows the authority for us to remove that citation. So that way it doesn't reflect negatively on the licensee's record.
I have another question. Is it possible to include the total number of current active licensee population at the bottom of the graph where you have the current active license population? So we know how many are actually current, because I'm looking at this and I see some that are active. We have totals for the active, inactive, but I'm just wondering, if we can get that number of how many are active and then how many are inactive, like the total.
Okay.
Yes, at the bottom where the gray line is, maybe a total of active and then a total of inactive.
Page 102.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, on the bottom of page 101, rather than lumping them, the active and inactive together, you would like a breakout of that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
We can do that.
Yes, I can do that. That's not an issue.
While we're talking about this report, that the orange column where there's a general population to licensee population ratio, I'd like to see that with active license versus the total license.
Okay. I could do that.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Sonia Hansen. Tracy, I have a question. Is the audits continue every year and year until you go through the whole 10,000 whatever licensings are? Or how's that works? Or they're just randomly 1 year you do it, the next year you don't do it? How is that work?
They do it monthly. They run.
It's a continuous.
Yeah, this is
auditing.
continuous. Mhm.
So year after year, it's always
Yes.
auditing.
Mhm.
Okay, until.
Yes. And it's random selection. Yes.
But you can be randomly selected twice?
Yes, you can.
Can you?
Yes.
Okay, just curious, because.
Because it's random, the system.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you can be picked up in 6 months, you come back again to the audit?
Yes. Well, not 6 months, but yeah,
But I
I
mean-
know what you're saying. Yes.
I'm just saying
That
it
renewal. Yes.
Just, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Are there any in-person comments? Seeing none, are there any public WebEx comments? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the Q&A feature for public comment?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. And I see we have a raised hand from Cindy Saley. Cindy, you should be able to unmute. There you go.
Wondering about the data on page 100. For the current active licensees.
I'm sorry, we can't hear.
Oh, sorry. Are you able to hear me now? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, on page 100 for the dental hygiene license population by county, for the active licenses, is it possible to designate whether they are part-time or full-time? Because I know a lot of hygienists work only part-time. Thank you.
Hi, this is Tracy, licensing manager. Unfortunately, no, because that's not information that we collect from our licensees.
All right, this is a moderator. I see no further raised hands. Madam Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you.
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. I just want to say, since I've been with the board, I want to give kudos to all my staff. This has been an awesome experience to work with all of them, and they're very efficient and very quick to get everything done, as you can see by the reports that are presented to you. And again, I just want to give kudos to everybody because this is an awesome team. So thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 16, discussion and possible action regarding oral myofunctional therapy and its use in dental hygiene profession. I would ask Executive Officer Anthony Lum to introduce this agenda item.
Thank you, President Jones. This is an agenda item that was requested to be posted at our July meeting to open up discussions in regards to myofunctional therapy and its use in the dental hygiene profession and whether it's part of the scope that dental hygienists can use. And we had an extensive presentation last time, robust discussion, and this is just a continuation of that discussion if there are any outstanding issues to be addressed. So I leave it open to the board for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Please identify yourself and then make a motion.
This is Board Member Matthews. I move for the board to accept the comments and information submitted and take no action at this time.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any board member discussion?
I do. I would like to sincerely thank the board, staff, and members, past presenters, and external organizations such as the American Dental Hygienists Association and the Oral Motor Institute for valuable contributions to this vital discussion. Myofunctional therapy has deep roots in dentistry, and dental hygienist education and expertise uniquely position us to play a vital role in the assessment and treatment of these disorders. However, there are valid concerns regarding the field's qualifications, educational standards, and regulations, particularly when treating newborns, infants, and toddlers. I genuinely believe in the potential of this evolving profession and the significant benefits it brings to airway, oral health, and overall well-being. Grounded in evidence-based research, this field continues to demonstrate its value in effectively addressing oral muscle dysfunction. I'm excited to continue this journey alongside like-minded healthcare professionals who share the vision of advancing innovative and scientifically supported treatment approaches. And I thank you again for the opportunity to discuss this topic in such detail.
Thank you. Is there any additional board member discussion? This is Carmen Jones. One of the things I'd like to see with the oral myofunctional therapy is for the dental hygienists who are interested in this realm to go through their professional organization, to go through the channels of legislation to put this through, and so that it carries everything that they are interested in doing as their duty. I don't believe that Dental Hygiene Board is the entity to start with, but so that would be my recommendation. Are there any additional board member comments? Seeing none, are there any public comments? In-person public comments? Seeing none, are there any WebEx comments? DCA moderator, will you please facilitate the Q&A feature for public comment?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type a comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. And I do see a raised hand from Cherise Burns. Cherise, you should be able to unmute.
I am the interim executive officer of the Speech Language Pathology and Audiology and Hearing Aid Dispensers Board. So I just wanted to take a moment to thank you for your conversation today, and just wanted to clarify and put it out there that in the state of California, the scope of practice of a speech language pathologist includes screening, evaluation, counseling, and treatment of disorders of speech, voice, language, or swallowing in individuals or groups of individuals. Specifically, the knowledge of procedures for assessing and treating through interventions and procedures orofacial myofunctional disorders, including those related to tongue thrust, is a competency within the speech language pathology occupational analysis and is in the educational and clinical training of speech language pathologists. So I appreciate your conversation today and look forward to hearing further conversations by your associations or the board in the future. Thank you for the opportunity to provide public comment on this issue.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator and I see no further requests for comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. I will now like to ask our board secretary, Nalini Lali Triple Agarwal, to please call the roll and record votes for this agenda item.
This is Nalini Lali Triple Agrawal, and I will now call the roll. Carmen Doan.
Aye.
Sonia Pat Hansen.
Aye.
Sherman King absent. Michael Long.
Aye.
Justin Matthews.
Aye.
Sridevi Panala. Nalini Lali Triple Agrawal. Aye. This motion has passed.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 7. Oh, not 17. We did 17 earlier. We are now on 18. Are there any board member recommendations for future agenda items?
This is Board Member Long. It's still unclear to me whether the board has the privilege to decide what's within the dental hygiene scope of practice. I'm not talking about adding to our scope of practice, as I understand this is done through legislative action. Rather, does the board have the duty to interpret our scope? And if not us, who does? I would like this topic to be added to our next board meeting's agenda for discussion and possible action. I'd like to direct the staff to investigate how other healing art boards address the issues of interpreting scope and report back to the board at the next meeting.
Thank you. Are there any additional board member agenda items?
Sonia Hansen, I like to see, I don't know where this will fit or any, looking into creating or seeking to see what legislations will allow hygienists to do Botox in California. Meaning for the purpose of non-aesthetics. But in conjunction with the oral maxillofacial treatments that we do.
I have one other comment. Earlier, we had voted upon it with the ratio with the students. And I just wanted to say, if the faculty had a dentist present at a public event, or wouldn't the, can we have the, how do we put it?
So 1915.1 you were speaking of.
Yes.
If the, thank you, I'm so sorry. So what she's speaking of is 1915.1, where we were putting it in statute regarding the 1:5 ratio. In that statute, we had limited duties to specific
clinical
duties that they could perform. The one thing that is not allowed is local anesthesia. I think what Ms. Agarwal is asking about is if the faculty member is a dentist, then that would be direct supervision, and then they would be allowed to perform those duties.
Yes.
So if you want to go back and look at that and add that in, I think that's what you're
Yes.
looking at.
Is that what we're saying, going back to a prior agenda item? Yes, we can.
So what I will do is I can point out the section on which page it is, And then I will tell you what each of the statutes allows in that, if that's what you'd want me to do.
Yes.
No?
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. Which section in a prior agenda item are we looking at, just for clarity for the public?
Okay.
Yes. We have a public comment.
What we're looking at is in number 7, it prohibits a hygienist from doing the duties of 1908, which is local anesthesia and nitrous. And what we were looking at when we were discussing is if a dentist is present and he is the supervisor or she is the supervisor for those 5 students, they would not be able to use anesthesia even though the direct supervision would be there. So just to modify it to say that if a dentist is present and providing that direct supervision, the student would be able to do nitrous or do local anesthesia. Because a lot of these healthcare programs that the students are coming to go to, a lot of the patients are going to need anesthesia. So just to modify 7, where it restricts 1908, to say that in the presence of a dentist, the 1-to-5 ratio, with the dentist being the supervisor, they would be able to do those duties. And I think you could just vote to direct staff to make the change to make that happen. I don't think you have to write it here. I think you just direct staff to make the change if you guys agree to that change.
I have a question. Would it just be easier to apply the code that says, direct versus,
Again, I don't think you guys have to decide now on the exact language. I think you can direct staff. If you agree that with the presence of a dentist, the 1-to-5 ratio, they should be allowed to do the duties under 1908, then Dr. Petty can rewrite, is it 1908? I'm gonna get the wrong one. Sorry.
No, so 1909.
1909.
Let me pull so Joanna's speaking of, oh gosh, in the board materials on page, let's just go back. I'm sorry. Yes, that's it. So in the educational materials on pages 158 to 244, okay? So 1915.1 in number 7, it is saying
it prohibits.
Right. Just give me a second. 1909 allows soft tissue curettage, administration of local anesthesia, and nitrous oxide oxygen analgesia. So we have in 7, section 1909 is prohibited. So I think what Lali is asking is section 1909, unless a dentist is present or unless supervising faculty is a dentist. Is that what you wanted?
I think as long as a dentist is present, but yes,
Correct.
because then you could have a faculty and a dentist and then,
Or you can.
Right.
But I think the key here is that you have that 1-to-5 ratio and that one supervising person in this case would have to be the dentist to oversee the students doing the anesthesia. So I think I think just saying that if they're going to do those duties, a dentist has to be the supervisor.
okay. But if you have a dentist there, and then you have your faculty,
I think the problem would be is that you wouldn't necessarily have the dentist supervising the administration of the local anesthesia. Your faculty member could be a hygienist and they would not be overseeing the actual injection. So I think that because it's a student and it's a public health situation, I think having the dentist, because I know in dental hygiene programs, faculty members oversee injections, and there, as a hygienist, I've done that, and we do that in our programs. We have a dentist doing direct supervision, but we oversee the actual injection happening. I think in this public health setting, you have to decide whether you'd want that actual person overseeing a student doing the injection to be a dentist.
I don't know how that would be any different from a school setting. I mean,
Well, in a school setting, the direct supervision is in the way I would look at it, the direct supervision is applied to a small number of individuals. In a public health setting like this, where it's a major event, there could be one dentist for 100 practitioners. So I would be concerned if technically that's direct supervision because there's a dentist there. I would be concerned if there was not a dentist who is specifically assigned to overseeing hygienists doing those particular duties.
yeah, and I think in a public health setting, and if it's geared toward dentistry, the chances of there being just one dentist, because they're doing dental care as well, I think that really limits the access to care, but I'll leave it up to the board to decide.
This is Anthony Lum, Executive Officer. So just to be clear, because I did pull up the section, what exactly is that line going to state as far as the new language that's going to be proposed?
Okay, what I have so far is the dental hygiene student is prohibited from performing any procedures authorized by 1907, subdivision B of 1908, section 1909, unless the supervising faculty is a dentist and provides direct supervision of the procedures, and provides direct supervision. I'll leave it at that for now. Subdivision C and D of 1910 and section 1910.5. So do you want it as section 1909, unless the supervising faculty is a dentist and provides direct supervision? Or how did you want it?
This is Anthony Lum again. Hopefully this fits into the slot, but what I drafted really quick was just to add on the end of that sentence, because it identifies all the sections for direct supervision, unless a licensed dentist is present to provide direct supervision.
Hi, this is Sonia Hansen. I do have a couple questions as well. Whenever you're done again. So I have worked in the past in public health, and we used to have clinics for homeless clinics and different clinics. But I also worked in a nonprofit organization such as a No Plan Clinic for the Native. Was that considered public health? Would students also do their
You mean NAC?
NAC, like Clinica does that as well?
Yeah, usually there's the dentist and the faculty overseeing the student.
Yeah, sometimes there are, but in NAC, I don't recall a dentist being there. So if we are going to say public health, should we define what public health is, or do we say NAC? Because NAC is really not a public health, but also students spend time doing
Right,
procedures.
but like DVC used to send students to
Yeah.
NAC. Right. No, I used to be at
Yeah.
DVC at the time. And I know right now DVC has an agreement with NAC that the faculty member oversees it, or they have someone, a hygienist, a licensed hygienist overseeing the student there.
Correct, and that's what my recollection was, that it was a staff member, she was a hygienist.
Right, but there are dentists usually within the building doing the other things.
I guess I don't recall honestly.
But they were in the office, as I recall, they were in the office and provided direct supervision because they were in the office. They weren't in an adjacent building or anything like that. They were contracted to do
This
that.
language, do we need to state them as well, because the students also spending time in there? No?
Wait, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is not public health. This is like health fairs and things like that. This is not public health settings, it's
Right.
health
I
fairs.
was asking if
Yeah,
we
it's like
do
CDA
this.
cares and those kinds of things. It's not a health care.
It's not like public health event?
No,
where-
no, it's their fairs and whatever they want to call them.
Yeah, health fairs. That's what we used to call it.
I just want to address Mr. Lum's comment. The only problem I see putting it at the end, some of those, the statutes that are referenced prior to that don't have anything to do with supervision. They basically are talking about that we can't diagnose, that we can't, so I would, we can't put in that we could diagnose under direct supervision anyways. So I would, we need to put it right by 1909 somewhere because those other things, even under direct supervision, it's illegal for us to do it. Unless you want to make it legal for us to do that.
Would you rather have it where I separate out section 1909 from that whole section and put the dental hygiene student is prohibited from performing any procedures authorized by section 1909 unless a licensed dentist provides direct supervision? Do you want that?
It's Shri Purnala. The only concern I have is if you don't have enough number of dentists who are volunteering for that event, we are constantly trying them to juggle between doing a procedure than providing the oversight. So it's better to keep it broader in a way where if there's a hygiene faculty or supervising faculty available to oversee, that will be better because then you're having competing priorities for a professional to choose either overseeing a hygienist giving anesthesia or provide direct service to another member.
This is Sonia Hansen. I also have a question. Go ahead. On this language that we're applying to, and I'm a devil's advocate in this, we saying that we can do anesthesia in nitrous. Are we saying for specific procedures? Because sometimes some people does prophylactic with anesthesia. So are we defining that or are we just going in general anesthesia when the procedures? Because I'm just being devil's advocate because.
Well, do you want to, so you can also limit what in 1909, if we know curettage happens, it's inadvertent curettage, so that's there. And then we have local anesthesia. I can't imagine, and correct me because you're a public health dentist, nitrous being utilized in those situations. So you can limit it that way if you want.
This is Anthony Loam. I do like that suggestion since we're going back and forth as far as the direct supervision aspects are concerned. Can we break that one section off to a separate line so that way it's identified specifically that these are the only procedures that can be done under direct supervision of a licensed dentist?
So
that'll be cleaner.
So pick it completely out of 7 and put 7 in as like number 8. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, that would work. Whatever helps on the clarity. If you have to add a number, that's fine. It's draft language, so we can add that in.
We're going to finish on our agenda item number 18, and then we'll go back to this one, if that's okay. Were there any additional agenda items or recommendations for agenda items for the future? This is for the board members. Anything more? Yeah, we did that.
I did see that. I mentioned it. I like to see.
The board.
I was like, did I use it?
Are there any public comments for future or recommendations for future agenda items?
Joanne Galliano, educational consultant. I would like to request, I know that the board has to accept any courses approved by the dental board. There's a huge concern among professionals right now about these mandatory courses that are being presented not following the law. that basically these mandatory courses are supposed to, it's in the law exactly what these mandatory courses are supposed to teach. It's the California law one there's a lot of abuse. There's a lot of courses being offered out there that do not cover scope of practice, do not cover who should be doing what in the office, do not cover abuse and neglect, specific things in the law. I would like to have this board discuss a mechanism for audits of those particular courses, because the purpose of them is to educate the CE, the whole unit, the whole CE, that should be part of the California law course. It's mandated, that's in there. So we're obviously failing. We're not, in the fact that we have so much unlicensed practice happening and we have so many questions from dentists about, well, who can do what? It's obvious that the purpose of those courses is not being met. And I think it's because they're not teaching what's required. For the most part, a lot of those courses simply become what a dentist does and gets in trouble for, as opposed to actually following the stipulation of law, which clearly outlines what is to be the content of those courses. And I think it's a huge consumer protection issue that we have so many courses out there that are not teaching to the law. They're just, making coursework that would protect the dentist from legal liability, which is not the intent of those courses at all. It's public protection and making sure that licentiates know what the law is in terms of duties, abuse, neglect, drugs. DEA is supposed to be covered in that, diversion, all that. Those are really important topics, and that's the reason why that's a mandatory course. And we're doing a huge disservice if we're letting people take that course thinking that they're getting what they're supposed to get. They're not, and then they're violating the law because they don't know the law. Is that in our purview?
Unfortunately, at this time, we don't have authority to audit CE courses. And to be honest, and I understand the commenters' concerns with consumer protection, because it is, but it's not under our current purview. And I guarantee you it's a huge can of worms to start auditing CE courses. And we can't just be selective on what we do as far as particular courses is concerned, because, as you know, as licensees, there's many providers that give one topic of CE courses. And if you're talking about like dental law and ethics, you would hope that the providers would provide these things that are appropriate for licensees to stay up to current on the current laws. But, right now we don't have authority for that. And it would be a huge task for staff to undergo that, let's just say, workload. Thank you.
See no other comments from the public in person. DCA moderator, will you please facilitate the Q&A feature for public comments on recommendations for future agenda items?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. And I believe we were going to go back to, which one was that? No, the agenda item. All right. Wait, please. It was agenda item 13.
Yes.
And that was Ledge Reg 13.
Okay.
Ledge Reg 4, sorry.
Okay. So do you want me to state what I have written? So we would add, and so there would be renumbering, which is, non-substantive. So I would add a section immediately under 6. 6 allows, shall only perform those procedures authorized by yada, yada, yada. Okay, I'd add number 7, the dental hygiene student shall perform only those procedures authorized by subdivisions A and B of section 1909 under the direct supervision of a licensed dentist. Now, one thing came to mind when I was writing this, okay? When we have community events, sometimes there are dentists from other states that come in and help. Do you want it licensed dentist or do you want it California licensed dentist? I'm sorry to throw that in, but this is statute, this is law, so I want to, make sure you're okay.
I'm going to look to Dr. Pinelli for some advice there.
Yeah, I think it will be California licensed dentist because the patient is back in California and we are, if anything happens, we need to make sure it's covered. I know it could be limiting and challenging, but I would say a California licensed dentist.
Thank you. Is there any additional board member comments? Are there any public comments?
Tukas Okai from the California Dental Association. I will second what Dr. Pinala said about a California licensed dentist to oversee.
Thank you. I need to ask the maker of the motion if they'd be willing to change, to accept the amended motion, and that was Justin and Sonia. Second.
Yeah, I accept the amendment.
Thank you.
I second that.
Thank you. Do we have any additional, or do we have any WebEx comments? DCA moderator, would you please open up the Q&A for public comments?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the right-hand corner of your screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment, Madam President. I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. We now, let me get to my page here. Okay, the board thanks everyone for attending today's meeting. This concludes the public portion of the meeting, and the members will now convene in closed session. Pursuant to Government Code Section 11126 c3, the board will deliberate on disciplinary actions and decisions to be reached in Administrative Procedures Act proceedings. Thank you very much for coming today.
Okay. All right, so
thank you all for attending the meeting today. This meeting is now adjourned. It's at 2:42. Thank you.